What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Beyond the Box Score, our very own weekly recap show on the NBA. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, we're meant to get this episode out last Saturday, but because of old mate over here, he lost the SD card for the audio, and he sent me a message and he goes, "Oh, you're gonna kill me," or I actually hate myself right now. And I was like, "What the hell's happened now?" And I had a feeling it had something to do with either the video footage or the audio footage. And funnily enough, he goes, "I lost the SD card." So here we are again, take two. We actually recorded this as well on Zoom the other day, or through Discord, but we
wasn't it.
Yeah, and we're just like, let's just wait till we get back in the studio on the weekend, and here we are now. So I'm really looking forward to putting this episode out because there's a lot of exciting stuff that, from the key takeaways part of it, the biggest disappointments, the fact or cap segment, which was obviously a very popular segment when we last put it out. So excited to, touch base on what's happened in the NBA, and yeah, let's get right into it. But Marcus, how you been anyways, besides that fuck up?
Let me address the fuck up. I mean, it was really bad. Like, what I think happened is I'm doing work training at this, hospitality thing, making drinks and that. And it's about approximately, I reckon, 8 a.m. I get off the train. I'm running late. So actually, it's like 9 a.m. because the thing starts at 9. And I take my computer case because I plan to edit after work. And there's a little scene that's split in that case. So I'm jolting, I made it on time to work training. I'm pumped. I'm hyped. But what I think happened in that scene, the micro SD card and the SD card, bang, out of the case, winds blown it away, long gone, never coming back. So, yeah, I was devastated. But the main thing, I guess, we can only do is we came back, we came back. And that is why we need you guys to support the Bench Mob or the Beyond the Box Score podcast, because we're giving this out all, we're renting the studio. Obviously, this is all paid for. So we need you guys to get behind it so we can continue to do that. And we're so close to that first milestone of 1,000. And obviously, no secret, when you get 1,000, you get monetized. So obviously that might help us do this more. But
100%. And, if you guys haven't followed the channel for a decent chunk of time, and you might not be aware, when we do hit 1,000 subs, if you are within the first 1,000 subscribers on the Bench Mob, you are in the running to win a jersey. So we're going to do a raffle or like a name pool, and basically if you're the lucky subscriber who gets their name pulled out of the random draw or random name generator, you get to take home a NBA jersey valued up to 200. I'm going to say 200 because now jerseys have gone up in price. So we'll be generous. So we're even, again, another expense out of our own pocket, but it's just to say thanks to all of you guys who have obviously been loyal supporters, loyal followers of the channel. So yeah, pretty much any of these jerseys you see or anything that you obviously have your eye on, it might be this Tyrese Haliburton jersey. Get on it early because
no Fox jerseys allowed. No jokes.
Nah, but like I said, before we start the episode, I just wanted to make sure, people were aware of what we're doing, and we're so close. We're like 64 or 66 subs away, whatever it is. So, yeah, if you guys can hit that subscribe button, show us that support, would mean an awful lot. And, yeah, pretty much that's all we got to say at the start of this episode anyway. But let's get right into it with the key takeaways from the past week and a bit since we last recorded. We actually had an original list to this, and then because we've had to delay the filming of this, and we've had to obviously reschedule, we've had to change a few things. Originally we had the Lakers, not being a potential playoff team as of like last week or the start of last week, whatever it was, and then the last couple of games have turned it around, so we've had to avoid them out of it. But a lot of it still remained the same, and a lot of it remained consistent. So I think that's the most important thing. So without further ado, we'll get it started. And Marcus, I'll let you
kick it off.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first key takeaway, the Minnesota Timberwolves defense, it's something not to be messed around with, and they might have the best defense in the entire league. When you have a depth chart with Jalen McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns, who maybe he has defensive lapses in the past, but historically, like fantasy god, I know that doesn't mean anything, but he's a great defender, block shots, great defensive rebound. Rudy Gobert, the main one is obviously Anthony Edwards, and then Mike Conley, he was part of that grit and grind Grizzlies team. They just have a lot of pieces. Like you could even point fingers at a guy like McLaughlin. Like, he's a scrappy little guard. The whole team is just filled with, guys who can play two ways. So, to me, if they are to be contenders, it's their defense that will get them there. Do I view them as a championship threat? Probably not, but I think a lot of people expected them, like, in terms of betting odds, I guess, to be like a top 6 seed. And, well, the key reason, I guess, would be defense. So that was the first key takeaway.
100%. This team kind of gives me similar vibes to the Memphis Grizzlies of a few, not the past couple of seasons. Obviously, we know with all the turmoil Jar's been through, it's obviously hurt that team a little bit. But, they had such a big ascension up the Western Conference standings. They have that one star player, obviously, which is similar. Well, they have like a couple of stars, obviously, Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant, but one bona fide superstar in Ja Morant. It was pretty similar to like how the Wolves have Anthony Edwards, and then they've got just solid pieces around them and guys who are wanting to play their role and, play that tough, hard-nosed style of basketball. So I think it's got a very similar ascension to that, and hence why, a lot of people might have been surprised by the rise up of the Timberwolves. But, when you have a genuine superstar emerge like an Anthony Edwards, and you've got Jaden McDaniels,
Rudy,
yeah,
Cat as well. I forgot Rudy, but how could I forget Rudy?
Rudy is probably arguably is in contention for DPOY again, and as I know it's early stages in the season, but for all the slander we gave him last year, and for what we expected of Rudy Gobert after that trade went down, we probably thought he might have continued on with that poor run of form, but he's turned it around. He looks rejuvenated, and the only question mark now with that team is the consistency of Karl Anthony Towns. Can he put it together? We have nights where he hits 29 and 12. We saw last season, a few seasons back, he's hitting 60 balls, but can he do that on a nightly basis? Because if they get that production out of Karl Anthony Towns night in, night out, they're scary, because then how are you going to guard Ant, Cat, and all these, other guys on that team? Even a guy like
Nas Reed as well.
Nas Reed, exactly. Yeah. Kyle Anderson comes in, plays a really good role in that team.
Shake Milton, he can light you up.
They've got a really deep bench, a really good depth chart. So I think, if they can continue to remain consistent, put the pieces together, then there's no reason why they can't make some noise in the playoffs. But the big key reason, obviously, for that is their defense, and as long as they stay consistent on that side of the ball, they've got every chance to beat any team in the association.
And statistically, I don't know the exact stat. This is why the podcast is beyond the box score, but I am aware they are a top 5 defense in terms of defensive rating. So that's just something to point out as terms of evidence if there is any questions there, because obviously we could talk about their depth chart, but visually, statistics show that they are a top 5 defense. So
I've got the numbers here. So for points allowed per game, they're second in the NBA.
Yeah.
They're first in field goal percentage allowed. So 3-point percentage allowed, they're fourth in that regard.
That's huge. 7th
in blocks per game, 13th in steals per game, and then 8th in rebounds per game. So, defensively they're locked in, and like I said, a big reason as to why they are the 3rd seed in the West, sitting at 8-3 at the moment.
Yeah, 100%.
But moving on to the second takeaway for the week and a bit, and it's Bam Adebayo over his last 6 games has been playing like an All-NBA caliber player, and that's a big reason why the Heat are 6-0. Is it the only reason? Well, not necessarily, because Jimmy Butler's playing to the level we expect of Jimmy Butler. We obviously mentioned at the start of the season, the first episode of this Beyond the Box Score, that he was the biggest disappointment to start the season off, because we didn't expect that kind of a production from Jimmy Butler. Even if it was in the early stages of the year, we just expect him to come in and, contribute and be a key part of that Miami Heat team, which he still is, and obviously he's proven it over the last 6-7 games of the season. But I think it's been underrated, levels of production from guys like Duncan Robinson, who fell out of the rotation last year at some points in the season, which is crazy to me. And, it was talked about him being traded. They overpaid him on that contract, and even his last 3 games, he's been an incredible contributor for that Miami Heat team. Then you throw in a guy like Tyler Hero, who's currently on the sidelines, but the way he started off the season, who's arguably a first option on that team, put all that trade talk and all that, tumultuous offseason with him being involved in all those talks for Damian Lillard behind him. And, even adding a guy like Jaime Jaquez, who they picked up 18th in the draft.
I love that guy.
Really underrated draft pick. And, again, it's the kind of draft pick that's perfectly suited to the Miami Heat organization. Pat Riley hit the nail on the head there. And then again, unheralded, underrated guys. Like we obviously know what Caleb Martin did in the playoffs, and then a guy like Haywood Highsmith, an undrafted player, and who, obviously we know what their reputation is at getting the most out of undrafted players year in, year out. So I still like what the Heat are doing, and for us saying that they were the biggest disappointment to start the year, they definitely turned it around, and they're right around that mark where they should be, and they look dangerous. And like I said, I think the real big asterisk next to their name is the health of Tyler Hero. If he can put it together and if he can stay out on the court, I think it just makes the game easier for Bam, for Jimmy, and for these other guys around him. So, yeah, I think that's, as much as I said it was all about Bam, I think the overall Miami Heat contributions across the board were really solid. So, yeah, let's leave it at that.
I completely agree. Like, when I look at the Heat, I mean, obviously there's one man who is on the trade table if they do want that scorer, and they probably could get him. Like the fact that Jovic, hopefully I didn't butcher that.
Jovic.
Yeah, Jovic. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name, but he's someone who hasn't cracked the rotation. I mean, that shows how good Miami Heat's depth chart really is. But say they threw the Bulls him, a young piece, something exciting, because nothing about Chicago is really exciting at the moment. So they throw them that, and then a pick. I'm pretty sure they could land Zach LaVine, a scorer that if they really want and think they need in the playoffs long term, he's there. But in terms of Bam, because I know this key takeaway is about Bam, this is something that Miami and specifically Jimmy Butler has been wanting for so long. Like he stated in interviews, post-game press conferences, he wants Bam taking 15 plus shots a night. And if he could do that, he could be like the number one option. And he's shown it. Like he's playing like an all-NBA player. Miami is 6-0. I think Hero
in the last 6 games, 6-0.
Yeah, which is crazy. And Hero, I think he is currently injured. So the fact that Bam stepped up and he took the pressure off Jimmy, who has struggled early on in the season, that's all you could really ask. So big ups to the Heat, and hopefully, I mean, I get around the Heat culture. I wouldn't mind seeing them, in the playoffs cause another upset.
I don't get around those jerseys though; they're terrible.
Terrible.
But yeah, I know it's again beyond the box score. We don't want to harp on stats too much, but just to put into perspective what Bam is averaging in his last 6 games: 23.5 points, 12.2 boards, nearly 5 assists, nearly 2 steals, and 1.5 blocks per game.
That is MVP caliber
53% from the field. Yeah, it is.
That really is MVP caliber, and yeah, a lot of people look at Bam and they kind of, there's always that top 3 center debate. Jokic and Embiid, obviously. But who's that third? Is it AD? Is it Cat? Is it Sabonis? Well, Bam's the one who I think plays the most consistently, and you know what you got to get from him every single night. So, yeah, no doubt should he be in that conversation still, even if some people consider him like boring.
Yeah. I love his defensive versatility. I love the fact that he can switch and play a number of positions on that side of the ball. When he does get put into a pick and roll action, a 2-man game, he can be that switch guy, and they're not going to attack him because he can move his feet. He can, keep up with quicker guards, quicker players. So I think that's an underrated aspect of his game. Obviously, that's the part of the game that everyone obviously knows about it.
The only player I reckon who can guard 1 through 5. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there's probably a couple others, but I think but the most obvious sort of choices, I think, Bam definitely does fit that bill. And like I said, the fact that he stepped up offensively, which was one big question mark, can he obviously be a guy that can lead a team or play at that all NBA caliber level on the offensive side of the ball? He's shown that. So I think his jumping production is really great, but he just has to maintain that consistency for the Heat to continue to make noise in the Eastern Conference. But moving on anyway, and Marcus, I'll let you take this one away.
Okay, so this one has to do with the Detroit Pistons. I know me and them, we don't have a great history, but I love Cade Cunningham. I love him as a prospect. I think the upside that he has as a 6'7" to 8 guard, it's a similar mold. I'm not saying he's the same level, but his skill set is the same of a Luka Doncic or someone in that realm, someone who can score, play make, shoot the 3 ball when he's at his best. He's somewhat athletic, and he just has that skill set where he can take over games in every facet of the game of basketball. But the undeniable fact that you cannot argue with, and that is why this is beyond the box score once again, is using the eye test, seeing his inefficiencies, I think that's holding him back from superstardom. No doubt is he special. No doubt. I had this argument with a friend and he just sent me, like he said it in the group chat basically, Cade Cunningham is special. He's great. Well, I'll say to that, he isn't great yet. You know, he's a sophomore pretty much in the NBA. He doesn't shoot well. In fact, he has the lowest PER for a 20-point per game scorer of all time. Of all time, which is crazy.
PER is 11.3. To put that into perspective, Jokic is hovering around like the mid-30s.
Jesus.
And the top three, I think, are all within 30 or just hovering on that like border of the 30 mark on that PER ranking. So, yeah, it just shows how bad it is.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say as well, also, averaging 5.5
Yeah, I was
per
about
game.
to yeah.
And the fact that
5.5.
Yeah, and the fact is like I think it's also like the top 10 out of all the top 10 like turnover percentages for a 20-point per game scorer. I think he's second or first. Like Pete Maravich is the only other guy. I think he's first in that as well, and Pete Maravich is number 2 on that list. So if you can have as great of a career as Pete Maravich,
Hall of Famer,
exactly, then you might look at that and say, well, it might not be all too bad. But I think the big question marks for him are not about his ability; it's about the shot selection at times. And this decision making. I think his basketball IQ, not questioning that side of it, because I do think he's an intelligent basketball player, but I just think at this level, at this NBA level, maybe not playing enough games over the first 2 seasons of his career, it's maybe hampered him a little bit in that sense. He's still
like his sophomore. What this would be his third year now?
Yeah, but it's technically like his second because he only played like
he was injured
12
games.
Or, 12 games, whatever it was. So obviously that's going to impact any player. And it's showing, obviously.
Yeah, that 2-11. So.
Yeah. So it calls for, obviously, Jaden Ivey to be traded and, the way that, giving Killian Hayes too many minutes.
He has his moments, though,
yeah,
Killian.
He does. And even just like people are starting to get on Monty Williams' case and saying, like, is he the right coach for this particular group? And
what's he supposed to do?
I know, exactly right. But I think, it's just more about shot selection, the kind of shots he does take. And I think overall how he goes about decisions on the court and like the way he reads certain moments in the game that probably needs to improve for him to take that next step. But if he can work on his inefficiencies and obviously improve those, the sky's the limit for him, because I do think he's got all the tools. It's just he hasn't put it together at this point in time, even though the numbers look good on paper. Yeah. When you're watching these games, you can't
be a box score hunter all the time. Like, no doubt, I'm not hating on Cade. I actually really like Cade. You know, he's probably one of my favorite players. But it's just the undeniable fact, like inefficiencies holding him back.
100%. So now, my next key takeaway: two guys that we may be seeing on the Team USA roster come 2024 at the Paris Olympics. They've both made pleaded their cases for it and why they should be on the roster, but Tyrese Haliburton and Anthony Edwards have both emerged as potential MVP candidates. And yes, like I said on an earlier episode, it might not have been Beyond the Box Score, it might have been one of our older videos. I don't like to get into this MVP debate too early. I like to get into it around the 30, 40 game mark, because we get a better idea of where these teams are sitting, how this player is playing. Because at the end of the day, an 11 game sample size, there's still sufficient amount of basketball being played, but it's still at that point where it's like it can be just a stretch of games where they play well and then they drop off.
Jeremy Lin.
Exactly. Excuse me. But like Tyrese Haliburton and Anthony Edwards, these guys have clearly, reached that level of play, and they're arguably the most valuable players in the league, and especially for their teams.
Especially young guys, like
100%. And I've got the Tyrese Haliburton jersey on, so representing. But I've been on Tyrese Haliburton from the moment he was at Iowa State, like pre-draft, like 6 months out. I showed you that post that I put in an NBA fans group saying
this guy was flaming people in the Reddit comments. I don't know if it was Reddit, but like some dude was hating on Tyrese and Danko was just grilling this guy.
But that's the thing. Like for me, I saw it early. I watched a lot of Kings basketball when he got drafted to the Kings, and then when he went to the Pacers, I was actually glad that he ended up on the Indiana Pacers and got his own team. And for what that team has, obviously they got a really good bench, really great depth, but they don't really have a genuine second superstar or second star kind of player. Obviously Miles Turner does show that potential, but we just saw how much of an effect he does have on that group, and pretty much he is the system, like you like to say. The fact is, when he was out of that lineup for the Boston Celtics game, they dropped that game by like 50 points. They lost. They let in about 150 points on the defensive side. Boston put 150 on him, and then Tyrese comes in the next game, and they start going on this winning streak again, and arguably probably could have won every game at home. They dropped that game against the Hornets, which they probably should have won if it wasn't for that moment. Tyrese actually explained it on the Old Man in the Three. I was watching that episode, the mailbag, and he was saying like he was unsure of what Brandon Miller was doing because he was expecting to come to double, but he just kept like jumping like from side to side, and it sort of threw him off, and then he just lost his dribble. So like he owned that moment as well, and I think the fact that he owned that mess up obviously shows how mature he is. But in terms of his production, he's nearly top 15 in scoring, averaging like 25 a game, nearly leading the league in assists. He's had a double-double in practically every game he's played in, and the team just looks better. The team looks more fluid. They're the number one offense in the NBA. I think they're 1 or 2 in offensive rating as well. Obviously, the defense leaves a lot to be desired, but for what he's done on the court, and now mainstream media is finally giving him his recognition, which I sort of get frustrated about because he's been doing this for the last few years. He's had games where he's dropped 38 when he was on the Kings against the 76ers, and then he had his moments last year, obviously getting into the All-Star game. But Wally Szczerbiak, called him out last year, said he's a fake All-Star, wannabe All-Star. Like, bro,
wasn't Wally a one-time All-Star as well?
Yeah, exactly. He's just a hater. But like at the end of the day, without Tyrese on that team, the 76ers, the Pacers, they aren't the same team, and you probably look at that team and they may be like hovering around the lottery again. But then I'll move on to Anthony Edwards. Obviously, he's emerged as a true superstar in this league. The numbers speak for themselves. He plays both sides of the ball. He's a gritty defender. He's a true definition of a two-way player. He's throwing shades of Michael Jordan out there. Some execs, some scouts. I know it's a bit of a raw take, but
closest thing I reckon.
Yeah, in terms of
honestly
that Kobe and that MJ mentality in him, he's got that dog. You know what I mean? Like his personality shines through. He's always smiling. But when he gets on the court, he just wants to kill everyone. And that whole exchange with Draymond Green, that was hilarious to me. Like Draymond talking shit, and he didn't
bow any of it.
Yeah, 100%. He didn't
like we say, he wants all smoke.
Yeah, he wants all the smoke, all the fucking smoke. But what he's done for that team, and stepped up as the true number one guy, true leader. Obviously, there was question marks over Cat. Was he the actual genuine number one on that team? But Anthony Edwards has well and truly jumped into that, position, and he's taken on that responsibility with both hands. And yeah, there's no secret why both these teams are right up there in their respective conferences, and yeah, they deserve all the credit they get and all the recognition they get. So for me, that's a key takeaway. And I know I spoke a little bit about this, but I love these two guys, especially Tyrese. So it's something that I could talk about for hours, and I could give you all the ins and outs about everything.
Yeah, no, I feel like you mostly wrapped it up really well. I'll just make a quick point about the Tyrese Haliburton thing, I guess. Like, this might sound crazy to some people, but you could genuinely make the debate right now that Tyrese is the best point guard in the league. Like, I know we talked about this in a previous ranking, the top 10 point guards, and people were kind of confused, like, why is Hallie 4? Well, let's go through it. I mean, Curry, maybe he's one. He's having a phenomenal year. Luka also is. He could be one as well. They're both deserving.
1A, 1B.
1A, 1B. But then there's Hallie, someone, he's not 3 or 2.
Yeah.
He's but he's having such a phenomenal year. Like, shades of Chris Paul, historic in terms of the numbers.
Yeah.
They're historic. Like, they're 25 and 12, and then the limited turnovers. And the main one for me, I guess, the thing about Hallie people would say is he doesn't take over games. Well, he had that game, he made that mistake. He got LaMelo pickpocketed him, and they lost.
But he had 25 points and 6 assists in that third quarter alone. That's never happened in NBA history.
Yeah.
One guy to have 25 and 5 or 25 and 6 in one quarter. And then, to add to that as well, the last two
Philly
games.
game?
Took over there as well. The Milwaukee game.
The Knicks game?
Yeah.
4 straight threes?
The Cavs game, sorry.
Yeah, was it the Cavs?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had so many, just moments. I feel like so many iconic moments. I think there was one in the Garden, though, because they were saying flashes of Reggie Miller. I do remember seeing it. I couldn't tell you like the exact stats, but
Yeah.
it was like 3 straight threes, which was sick to see. And then Anthony Edwards, I mean, freight train, the guy coming at you at full speed. It's like the closest thing to me to like LeBron almost in that 2012 to 14 period at the Heat. But yeah, and he just like, he's not like LeBron, but in terms of him being a two-way threat and such a great two-way player, such a great defender, getting in passing lanes, blocking shots, like the dominance of LeBron's 2012 to 15 aura, it's certainly there. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just elevating this
too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 11 games, but if the Wolves keep winning and Anthony Edwards is the number one guy, he deserves to be, I guess the whole thing, this is MVP candidate, like them to be candidates. So they kind of deserve the credit when credit is due because they are in that, I mean, that ladder, I guess. And if they continue to be two successful franchises moving forward and have good records, then why can't we blow it up? If people didn't really fully expect Hallie to emerge like this, I think the credit, it's due. Like, he deserves it because, like you said, fake all-star. I mean, people not thinking he's a top 5 point guard or not being anywhere near the level of a guy like Ja Morant or a guy like who else?
I just saw a comment, by the way, as well, like the other day, and it was like saying, "Oh, he just runs in and then he bails out with a pass."
What does that even mean?
It does, like, everyone's expecting him to drop like this like behind the back pass or this fancy pass, and then that's like, oh, that's more of like a recognized assist, or that's more like a valuable assist. But it's not. Like, the fact that he draws attention to him from the defense, which gets attracted to him when he obviously dribble drives.
That's a skill. Like,
that's what I'm saying. To find the open guy and to recognize what the defense is doing and be able to
help defense, especially like when rotations happen. That's what he does. He does jump passes. Like, he will jump in the air and then he'll find the guy in the corner. That's what he's been doing since he was probably 11 years old. Yeah. That's his skill. And the fact that he's not turning it over, like we were talking before off camera about that Trae Young thing. Yeah. The difference between them, like, although Trae might have the same box score, Hallie doesn't have the turnovers. Hallie doesn't shoot the ball as bad. And the Pacers win and the Hawks don't win as much. Yeah, so it's like, let's kind of focus on what's good basketball and what's not, and let's value everything that Hallie does really well instead of being like, oh, well, you know, Hallie, he's not.
He's like, an assist merchant.
Or, what does that mean?
Yeah, just stupid sort of takes. But yeah, there's this guy's like, oh, Trae Young puts the same numbers up, and I'm like, I had to respond to the comments. I'm like, dude, Trae Young has terrible efficiency and he's a liability on defense. They're not the same. Like, Hallie's 6'5", Trae Young's 6'1".
And that's no knock on Trae Young.
Yeah, Trae Young's a great player, hence why we included him in our top 10 point guard list. At the end of the day, like, we do rate him and we do believe that he's genuinely one of the best point guards in the league. But yeah, 50, 40, 95, averaging, leading the league in assists, top 15 in scoring. Like, it's second to none. His PER, I think he's like third in PER in the league this year. So
you simply cannot overrate this guy. Like,
100%.
You can't. Like, when someone plays basketball the right way, does all the right things, doesn't, you know, he's flashy, but he's not really. Yeah. Like, he's not step back three. Like, he's not like a Harden. He plays the game the right way. He finds the open man. You know, he's great.
Shot's money too.
Transition.
I don't care what people say about it. His shot is money.
When you're gifted like that and you have a skill set, honestly, like a Magic Johnson or like a prime Ben Simmons, like transition game, there's no flaw. Like,
there's no secret why the offense is the number one offense in the NBA. Like, he's the engine that drives that offense. So
we could talk about Hallie all day.
I know, exactly. But let's get back on track. But obviously, I don't mind the fact that we did address that, because I think, you know, he does deserve his flowers. He does deserve, you know, to be recognised. And I think, like I said, you and I have been high on him for a while, but the fact is a lot of people have slept on him. There's a few people that have actually slept. I'm like, oh, my favourite player is Tyrese Haliburton. It's like, who's that? Like, some people still don't know who this guy is.
I actually don't understand.
Yeah, it just obviously shows the casuals. But yeah, I'll let you take over the reins and we go to the next key takeaway.
So this key takeaway, I mean, today, like, I didn't watch the game, but I saw it, House of Highlights, shout out to them. James Harden hit a game winner, you know. Well, it was a 4-point play.
Yeah, 4-point play, yeah.
But I guess we'll take it as his Clippers tenure thus far with, like, the full body of work. So the key takeaway was that James Harden has to accept the role with the Clippers and not be the system for them like he was, I guess, at Houston when he first got there with Dwight Howard, and then moving, like, I'll make this short and sharp, but Houston, when he played with Dwight, and then that didn't work out, from there he goes to Brooklyn. Obviously injuries, stuff happens, but he gets out there as fast as he possibly can when Kyrie and KD leave, which isn't the best look because Harden, if he was still to be there and those two guys left, they're still competitive. And I personally think that team could still run amok in the East and be a championship contender, no doubt. Philly, best chance of winning. Daryl Morey's there, great GM. Joel Embiid's there, MVP. Tyrese Maxey's there, emergence into an All-NBA player. But you want to leave now and you want to go to LA with three other guys in Paul George, Kawhi, Westbrook. Like, you aren't the system, I guess. You are a product of that offense. You're a product of Kawhi and PG. Personally, I think Kawhi A, PG too, but you can either or. Great players. I just think that, he's got to have to be more of a spot-up shooter. He's going to have to sacrifice less dribbles, and he has to be open to the idea of sometimes not being in the game in clutch moments if he isn't performing. That's all. But, I mean, he's had his moments and he's a great player, no doubt. Harden's a terrific basketball player, but it's like, I don't know, history shows us that he rides the highs and the lows are really, really bad, and it's everyone else to blame. And I kind of don't like that attitude from, like, star players because, you should be able to adapt to any situation, I guess. Maybe not, your heart might not be in it, but you should at least try. Yeah. And I don't think he's been willing to do that in his NBA career.
100%. But I think, it's crazy to think, like, all the slander he was getting about his defense, but that was what he was sort of came into the league being known as, like, as a really gritty defender at Arizona State. And,
he?
Yeah, and obviously his time with OKC being that sixth man, he came in, he could provide instant spark on offense and then provide the defense. But then I think, obviously, when that trade took place to Houston, he realized how good he actually was and how capable he was as an offensive player, and it kind of just, like, went by the wayside. And, I think he tried to get his way once he became that genuine superstar in this league, and he realized that, like, he could, empower himself to get what he wanted. And I really like James Harden. I was a big James Harden fan. Still am to this day, but obviously the more that this sort of stuff comes to light, it definitely makes me like him less and less, but still can't discredit what he does on the basketball court. And obviously today proved that, he's still a valuable player in this league. But I think it'll just take time with the Clippers and, getting the right balance, who plays what minutes, staggering the lineups where they don't have all four guys in or when they have all four guys in at one time, and how they, that dynamic works, the chemistry. I think it'll definitely come together. I think they've got too much talent on paper on both offensively and defensively to obviously not be able to achieve something great in this season. But at the end of the day, they just need to obviously work out what the best chemistry is and what the best dynamic is. But I think there is a lot of potential there. It's just how that all comes together is going to be the big question mark. And we saw, obviously, that thing I sent you today, Russell Westbrook's willing to come off the bench. Great. And we know what he's capable of as a bench player and how much of a spark he can provide. He didn't have the best game today, but then again, there's three other guys there to be able to...
And they won.
Exactly.
So
100%. And it was against a hot, Houston Rockets team who have been on a roll. So
beat Denver.
100%. And beat the Lakers and...
The Kings twice.
Yeah. So, like, they've been on a really good, run of games. So the fact that, the finally got their win with James Harden in the town. I think it was 0-6 or 0-5 since the trade. So the fact that they finally got the result that they needed, it's sort of going to put them back on the right track. But
I think it's only up for them.
100%. I think anytime a guy like that comes into the organization, you need it. There's growing pains, and you see it with the Milwaukee Bucks now. Even Dame and Giannis, like, it's two new guys playing with each other.
Neither the same.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just going to take some time. And I think 11 games or 12 games, whatever, into the season now, it's a bit too early to sort of jump off the bandwagon or jump on it. But I think, things will work itself out eventually. But the next thing for me, we're going back to the Pacers, but we're not going to try and emphasize Tyrese Haliburton too much because we obviously spoke about him just in the last couple of takeaways there. But Pacers' depth chart is incredible. Their bench looks really, really good. Could arguably be one of the best benches in the entire league. But their defense leaves a lot to be desired. They've got one of the worst defenses in the league, but I think they're confident in themselves to be able to outgun the opposition and score more points than them, which I don't know how that will work out in playoff situations or in playoff basketball. But at the end of the day, I think, they trust that what they've got, the chemistry that they've got in that team. There's no egos. Tyrese brings the group together, gets everyone involved, knows which guys need the ball in their hands at certain situations, knows when guys haven't had touches or haven't had many shots in that particular quarter or on a given night, and he makes sure that they get involved over the course of a game. So, obviously look at Obi Toppin, he's a starter, but what Tyrese has been able to do in extracting the best out of Obi Toppin, had that 27-point game against the Sixers, run and gun. Isaiah Jackson did a really good job holding his own against Joel Embiid and was a big reason as to why they obviously came home with the win that game. Then you got guys like Jalen Smith come off the bench.
Love that guy.
TJ McConnell, Andrew Nemhard as a backup point guard getting doubles off the bench.
Naismith,
yeah, he's underrated. Buddy Hield. He's been in a bit of a slump the last few games, but I think we know what Buddy Hield's capable of, and we know how good of a shooter he is, and on any given night he can obviously get hot. So then you got guys like Jordan Nwora, who don't really play much. Jarris Walker, their top 10 draft pick, who's playing in the G League at one point, and Ben Shepherd, who's a really good shooter out of Belmont. Their bench extends far. Obviously, they don't utilize every single player on their bench on any given night, but at the same time, they know that they've got those resources at their disposal. And the fact that Daniel Tice, who we know is a capable backup center in the league,
Clippers now, isn't he?
Yeah, and he couldn't even get minutes at the Pacers. It just shows how stacked they were in their rotation pieces. So, yeah, they look really good, but their defense does need to be addressed, at least trying to get as many stops as possible. But again, I was listening to Tyrese on Old Man in the Three, and he was saying it's so hard because everyone's running and gunning, it's just you're bound to let in points, you know what I mean? And I think with how the freedom of movement side of it, the rules, the way they are, defense is a lot harder to play than it was once upon a time. But not to say that there isn't any defense being played. It's just the defensive schemes and, the way that, NBA teams utilize offensive schemes to counteract that. It's hard. So, as long as they can continue to outrun and outgun teams, I think they'll be in a really good position. Yeah.
I feel like their depth chart as a whole, they have some really valuable defenders, obviously, specifically front court, Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, Obi, you could put in the mix, Miles Turner, great defender. And it's come playoff time, I think they will be fine. I don't expect them to go far. Yeah. But the fact that Tyrese has behind him in the front court Jalen or Isaiah off the bench or Miles and Obi, I think that's fine. And then Naismith, he's obviously very capable defender. But it's not so much
about Bruce Brown?
Oh my God, how could we forget?
The acquisition in the free agency, he can
great
guard
defender.
He can guard 1 to 5 and, or, at least up until the power forward or 2 to 5, whatever it is. He can guard a number of positions, play a number of positions on the offensive side of the ball as well. So I think he's underrated in that aspect. So I completely forgot about him, just went way over my head. But
I did too.
Benedict Mathurin as well. Didn't mention him. He's had a bit of a down year, but I think, he
has his moments. He's a spark plug. But Benny... it's his sophomore year, so maybe sophomore year blues, but I love that. I love that guy.
I think he definitely has a lot of star potential, and I think,
he could be the second star.
I think Rick Carlisle, he didn't put him in the game for a certain period of time. He left Buddy Hield out there, and Buddy Hield was just bricking up everything, but it ended up working out. They won the game, but, it's one of those things. I think
he was benched last year, 6 man, so it's, they're giving him the keys. They're riding or die with Benny, but, it will come. He'll start making his shots, and then we'll remember why he was in the Rookie of the Year conversation for sure.
The one player, he's the one player on that team that probably doesn't move the ball as much.
No, he doesn't.
He's a ball stopper.
He's a Donovan Mitchell.
He's a ball stopper in the sense
he's a shot creator.
Yeah, he likes he's more of an ISO player than he is. Obviously,
that's why I like him. I'm not gonna lie. I love my great good brand of basketball to watch, but I do like people naturally players who score. This guy right here, favorite player of all time, Kyrie. favorite play growing up. And then like I always just like my DeMar DeRozan. Maybe that's why I went towards Benedict. Is like I was like, this kid, he's gonna be so
He's got
cool.
shades of those guys,
Yeah.
Sure. But like I said, I don't think necessarily it's a detriment to that team, or he can definitely obviously reach his full potential. But I just think
he is a ball stopper.
compared to like the rest of the guys and what Tyrese tries to bring out of every single player on that roster by like just giving up the rock, finding the best shot possible. When he does get to Benedict Mathurin, sometimes he doesn't want to make that extra pass, and he's dribbling it, trying to like create something. And he does create. He's like I said, he's a really good on the ball shot creator. But it's just, does it fit in with that scheme of that team and that?
Hallie wants him to succeed as well. Like I've heard him talk about Benny in his rookie year. He was like, he's like a gym rat. Like he does not leave the gym. He's got to like help push this team like towards playoff success. And
there was one thing that he said. He goes, Benedict Mathurin came up to him after a game and he goes, he didn't feel like he got the ball enough. And Hallie made it an emphasis the next game to start finding him.
That's your point guard you want on your team.
100%. That's the kind of guy you want to play with, like a guy that that recognizes that and is willing to put the process in play to be able to obviously help that out. But moving on, and I think this is you now.
Okay, so this one we kind of talked about this before with the Houston Rockets, and it's no secret they have been a surprise team, I guess, this season. They've beaten, my Lakers, killed us, I think 20-30 bowled us, beat the Kings twice. They beat Denver. Today they obviously lost to the Clippers by 6. But
it was a close game throughout the whole,
close game, and it's the Clippers, like 4 All-NBA guys. So pretty much Ime Udoka, coaching wizard, freak, like I did not expect him to extract this much out of the young guys like Jalen Green, Jabari. I didn't think they would buy in as much as they are. Maybe that's a product of Fred VanVleet as well, being that veteran point guard, but they look like Udoka's just seasoned like everybody. And the record showing, I think now they would be 6 in the West with a record of like 7-4. But it's the teams they've beaten, which like impressed me, because these aren't like teams who, not that they're expected to beat, but just better or slightly better. These are like championship contenders. So I expect this to be sustainable. I expect this team to make the play-in. If they don't, they don't. I'm not mad at it. But yeah, that was just a key takeaway. Udoka, great coach, extracting the best of the young guys and the best of the entire roster, I guess.
100%. You didn't even mention the one guy that's had
Alperen
Schenker and LP. I think the fact that Ime Udoka got there, and again, he's allowed him to sort of run the offense. The offense runs through Alperen Şengün on any given night, and he's obviously a willing passer in the mold of like a Jokic and a Domantas Sabonis. Obviously, he's limited in certain aspects. Defensively, he could get better. He could be a better 3-point shooter. But overall, what we see from him on a nightly basis, like the wizardry with his passing, his back to the basket game, his willingness to like put guys on a poster. He loves to like dunk on people when he gets the opportunity.
Sneaky bounce.
Yeah, he does. And I think, overall, them running the offense through him and then having a guy like Fred VanVleet who can also be a really good playmaker and a guy that can obviously get his own. And then you add in a guy like Dylan Brooks, who they acquired in free agency.
See the stare down.
Dylan the villain, yeah. But, those kind of guys, those underrated acquisitions in free agency definitely are helping this team. And even a guy like Jeff Green doesn't get a lot of minutes now as much as he obviously was once upon a time, but having that veteran presence on the bench, being able to like guide these young guys, obviously, and he's seen everything. He's been on a number of franchises, a number of successful franchises as well. I think that definitely helps them. And but it all starts at Ime Udoka, in my opinion. If it's a hot take, but I think if Udoka stays as the coach of the Celtics last year, and
they win the championship,
they win the chip. In my opinion, I think that if they don't win it, they make the finals, and it's a really, really tight 7-game series.
I agree.
Because his adjustments on the fly, his ability to recognize the situation in the game, it's very much Pop-like, and it's obviously he's a disciple of Pop because he was the assistant coach for a number of years at the San Antonio Spurs under Greg Popovich. So the fact that, he's brought that into his own style of coaching and he's put his own twist on it, but added elements of what Pop does, I think that is very underrated. And like I said, he's a wizard as a coach, and the kind of instant changes he's made to this Houston team, which, last year, seeing them how they played, you would never think that they would be in a position that they are now. You'd think, the talent that they do have around them and at their disposal, like, again, they'd be hovering around that lottery mark, late lottery, not really being a successful team, missing out on the playoffs. But no, the way they've started, the teams they've beaten, really underrated. So I think they're well on their way to continuing that if they,
One quick point. I guess Amen Thompson injured, Tari Eason injured. Two guys who are like really, really good young pieces and it can obviously help. Two versatile players. So the fact that they got those two guys coming back, it only makes them that much more versatile and I guess scarier out the West.
And the fact that Cam Whitmore's in the G League at some points,
God.
yeah.
I was watching his highlights. This guy is balling.
Yeah.
He's averaging like 30. I didn't know he was that good of a 3-point shooter. Now I see why you were so high on this guy because he's special for sure.
100%. And I think it's going to come. He's just going to bide his time. I think he just can't let his ego get in the way of it, and he can't let the phase of his career now where he's obviously been assigned to the G League. He can't take that as a bad thing or as a negative. He has to take it as a positive and try and help himself grow and obviously get
maybe Houston just won't be like the spot, but yeah, plenty of teams could certainly use that guy for sure.
100%. I'm still holding out hope that he can have
Chicago.
Never know, but it's still early on. I think he can definitely crack that rotation at some point. But going forward, the next key takeaway, we've got a couple left. The 76ers look legit now that the drama has been erased from the organization. Obviously, most notably, James Harden and the beef that he had with Daryl Morey, and then obviously also include Doc Rivers no longer being the coach and having a championship caliber coach in Nick Nurse, who I really rate as a coach. I know some people, Raptors fans in particular, even though he took him to a chip, weren't the biggest advocates of Nick Nurse as a coach. So I don't understand why. But at the end of the day, when you've got a guy of that caliber coaching your team and a guy that looks like he's a really good people person, and then you add in to the mix that, despite this tumultuous offseason that they had, Tyrese Maxey now has a defined role. He's emerged into an all-NBA caliber player, the perfect co-star, in my opinion, to a guy like Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid is more of like you could say he's like an ISO kind of player, even though he's a center. He likes to have the ball in one-on-one situations. He doesn't really like, create for himself. Not create for himself, but he needs someone else creating for him. Whereas, James Harden also, he wants to create for himself. He doesn't really look to create for others. Obviously, he's got that ability to do so. But I don't think those two, both being very slow style of players, were the best complement for each other. But Tyrese Maxey, who loves to push the ball in transition, he likes to, get out. He's got an ability to shoot threes, shoot the mid-range, hit floaters, get to the lane, get to the rim, can dunk. Underrated defensively, really good playmaker. That's probably one area of his game that's really popped out to me, and how while he passes the ball and finds guys. But yeah, just in general, I think they're the perfect complement to one another. And Joel Embiid really respects Tyrese Maxey as well. He said Tyrese is always in the gym at the facility at 7 a.m. with a smile on his face, and it's just infectious, and he makes other guys want to work. And then I was listening to Pat Beverly, or Pat Bev, I don't know why I said Pat Beverly, Pat Bev, that's what we know him as. He was talking on his podcast about helping Joel Embiid with extra conditioning, and that's the kind of mentality you need to have, and that's the kind of guy you need in that organization. As much as shit we hang on Pat Bev,
best offensive rebounder, point guard.
Yeah, but it's just he's just a really good glue guy and a really good guy to have in your organization. It's like the guy that you hate to play against, but a guy that you love on your team, a bit in the similar mold to a Dylan Brooks. But then you add in Kelly Oubre, obviously the whole controversy with how that car accident took place, or getting hit by a car. Because
we wish him all the best here.
See the footage? It was leaked footage
when he walked in the hotel.
He had his bike, which is a little bit sus. But
how can you hit and run someone? That's the most that's the worst thing you could ever do.
But there was apparently there was all these accounts that what he was saying wasn't it didn't add up or whatever. But I don't know. Well, we're not going to go into that. But obviously him being in that side off the bench, underrated acquisition, underrated kind of find for what they got him for in terms of being able to come off the bench, score at a really high level, provide energy, and then what they acquired in that James Harden trade as well, getting Marcus Morris and Roko an upgrade on PJ Tucker, Nicholas Batum. Fourth quarter yelling, why the fuck Batum in? It's funny, even in his farewell Instagram post, he actually like referenced that. It was so funny. So good. But yeah, a guy with like as much experience as Nicola Batum coming in, I think is really valuable for the 76ers. And they still got Furkan Korkmaz.
Jaden Springer, gun.
Tobias Harris, I forgot to mention as well. So like I feel like that roster is still constructed well enough to obviously make a run at a championship. And the way they're playing at the moment, they won 8 in a row before they got knocked off by the Pacers. But they're really, really dangerous. And I think, if they can continue to put things together, there's no reason why they can't be around that mark at the pointy end of the season. Yeah,
100%. Like, definitely updated the depth chart. Like, obviously with Harden, like, I guess you have no choice not to. And then they got the 2 first, which, like, that's another team with the Heat. Obviously, there's interest there with Zach LaVine. So if they really want to push for a Zach LaVine deal, and people would look at that team and be, I guess, more scared. With Zach, I don't know if he would take away from Tyrese. That's a question of its own, but it certainly could help push them to a championship. I don't know if it's the best thing to do. I don't know if it's the worst. Only time could tell how well that would work out, but that could be a thing, and if it is...
I was just going to say, I think it actually probably wouldn't be the worst dynamic. As much as we say, like, obviously, Harden hindered Tyrese's growth a little bit. Like, Zach's more of a shooter, and Tyrese Maxey, now knowing how good of a facilitator he is, I think they're 2 different style of players, if that makes sense.
LaVine loves to catch and shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
He loves being squared.
Tyrese Maxey can find those kind of guys.
Okay, so for the next key takeaway, the Sacramento Kings. I don't think personally they've been utilizing Davion Mitchell since he got there, since he arrived at the organization. When he did get there, they already had your boy Tyrese, and they also had De'Aaron Fox. And obviously, playing behind those 2 guards, you're not going to have the spotlight like you did at Baylor when you were in that NCAA championship team. He was the star. Like, he had all the tools. I don't think he was ever going to be I hate putting all-star labels because it sounds kind of casual, but I didn't think he would fully adapt to the NBA level as like a star. But I thought he was going to be a valuable six-man volume type scorer in this league. And I thought like a Warriors, him playing behind Steph at the time, that was that really bad Warriors team with like Kelly Oubre. Draymond was there, Clay was out. They just struggled. So I thought Davion there, perfect fit. But overall, my key takeaways, just watching Davion, looks kind of out of place, doesn't shoot the ball heaps. Defense is still there. He's had his moments, but he's also had some really bad games, and I don't think it's fully his fault. I think that his psyche is messed up. Like, it happens all the time. I just think he needs a new team to take him on, and I think like I'm going to continue to point to Chicago because nothing is going for them this season. They may as well throw a second rounder at a guy like Davion and just see what they can extract out of him because, like, what else are they going to do? Let DeMar score 30, or are they going to invest in a young guy for a season? Like, it's the best thing. You still got to lose, still got to get a good pick. You may as well. So, my key takeaway.
Yeah, I saw that obviously there was a lot of hype around Davion Mitchell, and obviously you can get a bit lost in that as a scout or as a GM by looking at how good someone plays in the tournament. Obviously, we saw with Jordan Hawkins, it definitely bumped his draft stock up this year, but Jordan Hawkins is a different sort of level. He's 6'4". He's the best shooter in the draft. He doesn't need a lot of dribbles to create his own shot. You saw, obviously, most of his shots this year have been on catch and shoots with limited dribbles. And even guys like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another guy. Dante DiVincenzo, for example, like had that most outstanding player award.
Jalen Brunson?
No, Brunson wasn't. He was a second round pick. So I'm talking more about guys who raise their stock up by being the most outstanding player, and we can take too much emphasis on that. And obviously with Davion Mitchell being the star of the show in that Final Four run, did we maybe overrate Davion Mitchell based off that Final Four production. At the end of the day, he's a 6-foot guard.
Yeah.
He's really good defensively, don't get me wrong, but again, undersized, trying to guard the best players night in, night out, who are obviously physically more imposing than you, might be a difficult task. I think he's got potential, don't get me wrong. I think he's a really, really solid player, but I just think, the Kings have stunted his growth. And like I said to you the other day, guys that come into the league, the reason why a lot of them become busts is they lose confidence. They have this, they don't come into the league they straight away with like the right mindset, or they lose confidence in their ability. It's such a key player in whether somebody ends up being a really effective player going forward in the career, or whether they just go completely downhill. So I think Davion hasn't had the best start. I think obviously he was already a little bit behind in terms of being an older player coming out of the draft. So that was already like something that went against him. But I think had he gone to the Warriors, I think the Warriors are really good developers of that kind of talent. Guys who don't necessarily maybe have superstar potential or the ability to become a genuine star in this league, but guys that can play their role and be important players on a championship contender, that play the right way, that play with grit, grind, intensity, and can hit shots when they need to. And I think the Warriors would have been a perfect fit in that situation. But obviously that there's a reason why they didn't pick him, and maybe they probably worked out why. But I still think he can have success in this league, but just for what we've seen so far,
star in his role type player.
Yeah, correct. But what we've seen so far obviously hasn't been very promising. And like I said, I had high hopes for him as well, but I think that's a question you need to ask. Do we overrate most outstanding player awards come Final Four time, come the championship games in these NCAA
just shows
moments?
Like NBA situational at the end of the day. Like everybody's replaceable pretty much, and like the picks are made for that direction at the time, but a direction can change in a split second if some other guy breaks out, like Hallie kind of.
Yeah. You look at Derek Lively as well. Like Derek Lively averaged 5 points and 5 boards a game in his freshman season, his only season with Duke. But because Duke plays a certain system, they got a lot of star freshmen, star players that need to obviously share the love. He just played his role, but then they obviously saw what kind of potential he had, and they saw the full array of skills that he did possess, and that's why they picked him so high. It might have been a reach at the time, but obviously we've seen how much it's translated to the NBA game, because he's the perfect modern day center. And other guys like
Vernon Carey, the man at Duke, you know? But he goes later, and he's obviously a serviceable guy, but I think he's a free agent right now.
Yeah,
so it's like same system at Duke, a couple years apart, maybe a year or so. Sometimes it's such a hard fine line, like drafting off upside and potential or drafting off
production,
ready-made, and production.
Yeah.
But there's no right or wrong. It's just what the team, their situation, and the Kings just,
I think the draft is, like I said, it's a crapshoot, and if you don't fall into the right situation from the get-go, then it can really, hamper your career, and you could just be stuck in basketball purgatory, as they say, and probably not have the best success. But fingers crossed Davion Mitchell can turn it around, because I think he's got a lot of great tools in his game, but obviously hasn't utilised it and shown it. I think he fell out of the rotation only recently, so fingers crossed, something can turn around for him. But at the moment, obviously, it hasn't looked great for Davion Mitchell in his career with the Sacramento Kings. But on my last takeaway, it involves the Sacramento Kings. De'Aaron Fox obviously back. He's been back the last few games, but his injury showed how important he was to the Kings and how much easier he made the game for the rest of his teammates, and including Domantas Sabonis. When Fox was out, Sabonis, didn't impose himself on the game. Defense, obviously, game plan for him, the fact that De'Aaron Fox was out. And then you look at, Keegan Murray obviously had another ordinary game today, but the game before that, I think he had 25 and 8 in that big game against the Lakers. He loves to play against the Lakers. Yeah, I was going to say.
Everybody loves to play against the Lakers. You see LeBron AD playing Staples, terrible defense. It's like, I have the opportunity to score 20 to 25 on LeBron.
Even Kevin Huerter, he's sort of...
he stepped up.
And I think, like I said, De'Aaron Fox garners so much attention from the defense, especially in clutch situations in the fourth quarter, and, in big moments that, the rest of the guys then step up accordingly, or maybe they, that rubs off on the other guys, and they know they need to step up their role, or just the fact that, like I said, the attention that he garners from the defense is just so great that these other guys then have a lot more, feel a lot more open, or they get a lot more open looks, and like I said, the court just feels like it has a lot more space on it when they are out there with De'Aaron Fox. So for me, that's a key takeaway, and that's the final key takeaway of this segment.
Let's go. Okay. Okay, so now we'll move on. Biggest surprises, biggest disappointments for players for this past week or week and a half, with me losing that SD card. Happens, but I'm going to go with my biggest surprise first, and it's one that, I don't think has got any recognition from anybody. And I made a video on this guy earlier, and it didn't do too. I think it got some views, but didn't really get too many likes. Nobody really cared that much besides Pelicans fans. Fellow Aussie, Dyson Daniels. He's been pretty impressive. He's been on triple-double watch many, many times. So I'll read out like some recent games. He had 10 and 10, 17 a career high, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. And he had a 10.6 assist game, but 3 steals. Two-way player. That's what he's known for, or was known for in his draft year. And we knew that if he was attacking the rim and providing that defense, that's why he was valued as a top 7 pick. And then today he had 10 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals. I just think Dyson, if he continues to be aggressive and he continues to attack the rim and provide that shot blocking, defensive, getting in passing lanes, like I think he can be an all defense player if he is to be a starting point guard in this league. And I think that, it's like he has a real good connection with Jordan Hawkins. He's running the second unit right now. All he has to do is remain offensively focused and attacking. And I think he's good because skill set wise, he's got all the tools. 6'7", athletic, good makeup. He's big, he's strong, great defensive player. It's just be aggressive, shoot the ball when you're open. Even if you miss, it doesn't matter. I think he's come onto leaps and bounds though, and I think he definitely does deserve some recognition because he isn't a bad player. He's just slowly but surely developing, and I wouldn't be selling my stock or selling out on my stock yet on a guy like Dyson Daniels for sure.
No, I agree. I think he's definitely come on more than I expected him to. Me, I always said this about Dyson Daniels. I feel like he's a bit too much of a nice guy.
Yeah, I agree.
And he doesn't have it doesn't seem like he has that dog in him. But like he does have the skills and the tools in his bag to be able to do it in terms of his size, his defensive acumen, all that sort of stuff. But I just think that aggressiveness. If he had the aggressiveness of Ant with that skill set and those tools,
mentality.
Yeah, it's a mentality thing, and I think obviously maybe it's just an Australian thing. Like we're pretty like chilled, laid back, especially because he's from Bendigo. He's from a country town here or a major country city.
Just wants to have a slap.
Yeah,
play some pool like you said.
Yeah, so like that obviously does play a part, but in terms of if he can just add that to his game and add that aggressiveness on a more consistent basis, I think he's definitely got the tools to be a really long time player in this league and a really important player on any team that he does obviously play on. Yeah. But for my biggest surprise, I'm going with RJ Barrett. He's been out the last 5 days with like a migraine, which is
dude's like dying right now.
It's like the 2K ones, It's like framed for murder. Yeah. It's like I don't know what's really up with RJ Barrett at the moment, but obviously I'll pull up his.
He's sick of Julius Randle taking those dumbass shots. It's getting to his head.
Yeah, from the last time I remember with his numbers, again, it's beyond the box score, but I want to read out some numbers for you. So 22.6 points per game, averaging 3 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 49% from the field, 50% from 3, 85% from the free throw line. I think that start to the year, obviously there was a lot of talks about him possibly being traded out of New York. There's talks about, how they can package him out to, get another star alongside a guy like Jalen Brunson. And if they can keep Julius Randle, obviously create like a big 3 as such. But I think you don't really necessarily need to do that because I kind of feel like Julius Randle, the way his inconsistencies on the court have sort of shown this season again. He has 1 year where he's an all-NBA player and then the next year he completely falls off the face of the earth. But
the whole of New York hates him, and then
yeah, but that's the thing. I think
50
now with RJ Barrett's emergence early on in the season, and
it's kind of scapegoated, or it's kept it to the hush kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the fact that now you could argue that he's almost the second option on that team, and when he's playing to this level with the confidence that he has, he's bringing it back to the levels that he showed once upon a time when he was arguably a top 2 prospect in the NBA draft. And there was some arguments to be made that he was like in conversations for the number 1 pick with Zion Williamson. Obviously, as the season at Duke went on, and Ja Morant's emergence, that didn't obviously take place. But there's a love-hate relationship even with him with some Knicks fans. We know what he's truly capable of, but he hasn't shown it, or he settles for the 3-point shot a little bit too much. But I think he's attacked the rim a little bit more. I think he's balanced out his game. He's utilized that mid-range jump shot, and I just think that confidence he took from the FIBA World Cup, with obviously Canada taking out that bronze medal and playing a big part alongside SGA, Dylan Brooks, leading into the season, it obviously gave him a lot of confidence. It looks like he's put in a lot of work with his trainer Drew Hanlon. From Pure Sweat Basketball. I don't know if that's the name of the company anymore, but I remember watching a lot of videos. He trains Jason Tatum, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, so he's obviously got really good client list, and I think he's been his trainer since like high school, so he's put in a lot of work, and you can just tell like he came back ready in season. So hopefully he's turned the corner. Obviously we need to see it from a larger sample size before I get more stock in RJ Barrett, but I think from what we've seen from him thus far, I think it looks promising, and hopefully he can continue it on and be a key contributor to the Knicks and their obviously playoff chances. But yeah, that's pretty much who I think is my biggest surprise. I was trying to think of some other guys, but RJ Barrett, like I said, with all the hype that he came in the league with, a little bit of ups and downs, and then people wanting to trade him out of the organization, he's stepped up big time. And yeah, I think no surprises why I've put him as the biggest surprise.
I really hope so. I really do hope so, for the sake of RJ's career, because, he's just the makeup that he has. I keep going on about this, but he's always been a gifted scorer, but now he's efficiently scoring the ball, and that's just that's what you want. You can't ask for anything more. I think he's the X factor of that team. Obviously, Randall is kind of down. Brunson had somewhat of a slow start. But RJ's the one who's kind of maintained but done it efficiently, and because of that, the Knicks are 7-5, so they're above 500, and that's probably what you would expect them to be. And I think you could give all credit to RJ Barrett for that, because those 2 guys were down, but RJ maintained it, and like you said, he's shown why maybe they don't need to go after another superstar, or maybe they can just leave what they have right now and let RJ go, because, what's there not to like about RJ Barrett's game at the moment? But now we'll move on to our biggest disappointment for player, and we probably have the same one here.
Yeah.
I know I have him. That is none other than Jordan Poole. And I don't like slandering players. I really don't like giving players a lot of smack, but I'll keep it short and simple, but
I'll go in on him if you want.
The way the guy plays basketball, it's almost... I used to say this in high school to some of my friends as a joke. It's disrespectful to the game. It's a slap in the face to basketball. Takes bad shots, takes the piss, backs down Porzingis, gets blocked, backs him down again. Some of the dumb shots and just the bad turnovers and just the willingness to just continue doing the same thing despite not really caring that much if the Wizards are winning or losing. I just think there's too much there at Washington for them not to develop. Denny is having a great career year. Bilal's had his moments, some really promising games. Tyus Jones is there. You have a point guard who is a great point guard, best point guard off the bench last year in the entire league.
Assist to turnover ratio was really I think he led the league in assist to turnover ratio the last 3-4 years or whatever it may be, maybe 3 seasons. So definitely takes care of the rock.
Sometimes you don't need to, I feel like. Obviously, like we said before, don't always put someone on the bench because it hinders their development, might stunt their growth. But honestly, do the Wizards look at Jordan Poole as our long-term guard right now, the way he's kind of acting up in timeouts?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think you would. So I would move him to the bench. You're not playing well. You're averaging 16 points, shooting 20% damn near from 3.
No one should be bigger than the team.
Nobody.
Nobody. Like, doesn't matter who you are. At the end of the day, an ego is an ego, and whether you're playing with the best team in the league or the worst team, you have to come in, night out, and play your role for the team and play the right basketball, play basketball the right way. That's why I'm so dirty on the fact that we didn't draft Haliburton as a Wizards fan like back in 2020, because how he could have changed the course of this franchise, in my opinion.
Astronomical.
Yeah, an astronomical kind of ascension. But then again, I think I'm happy with where his situation is. But going back to Jordan Poole, coming in, that preseason game where Denny obviously was open numerous times and he's taken like contested sidestep threes. And obviously he made a lot of those shots in that game and he scored 41. And I think people over exaggerated and said, he's gonna average 25, be an all-star, yada, yada, yada. And so obviously that hasn't played out the way people expected it to, and the fact of the matter is he's averaging 15.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, 3.7 assists on 39% from the field and 27.8% from the 3-point line. Today against the New York Knicks, he had 8 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists, 2 of 11 from the field in 28 minutes of play. Like, his box plus minus was minus 18. Like, this guy just... Like I said,
I can't watch Wizards.
I can't either. And I'm a Wizards fan. I have to watch the games, and it's just terrible right now. And the only reason I got any hope is
Denny.
Yeah,
he's so good at basketball. I'm looking at it now. I'm shocked seeing this. But obviously, 13 points, around 6 rebounds, around 4 assists. But 42% from 3, 52% from the field. Get the guy more looks. If anything, I would be making Denny. I know that's not everybody's game. Not everybody is that main scorer or wants to shoot as much. I heard Theo Pinson talk about this. Some people just like to play the game the right way. That's what Denny is. But at the same time, you give that guy 4 more looks, most likely it's more likely going in than not.
18 to 20 points per game potential. When I was watching his highlights when he was playing at Maccabi Tel Aviv, bro, he was going coast to coast, dunking in transition. I'm like, where's this assertiveness? Where's this aggressiveness? That's why I was actually I wanted Haliburton, but when we drafted Denny, I was
mad.
I wasn't mad at the time. But then, coming into this situation, maybe he didn't come into the right time with the Wizards, with the, the turmoil that was going on in the front office. Tommy Shepard got, obviously, got the arse, and we got a new front office in this past season, which obviously resulted in drafting Bilal Coulibaly. But I think, having a guy like Denny being able to be more assertive. Again, that whole thing came down to the confidence side of it. I think he's only just starting to, feel out his style of play, his game, and the confidence is starting to come in. Maybe he lost a bit of that at the start of his career, and it's always hard to turn that around. He's managed to do it, and I think he's turned the corner. But I think giving him more of the keys, more of the responsibility, and having that trust in Denny to say well, we've paid you now. We think you've got a lot of potential to take this team really far, or help us take this team really far. Here's the keys to you.
I love Denny.
Don't worry about Kuz. Don't worry. Kuz is obviously playing well. Don't get me wrong. But don't worry about Kuz. Don't worry about Jordan Poole especially. Denny should be the second option in this team, and he should get more looks. And Jordan Poole, I just hope the Wizards part ways with him, because it's
I hope the NBA. No, that's so harsh. I don't wish that upon anybody. But at the same time,
3, 2, 1, China. No. Shanghai Sharks or Guangdong Tigers. I don't know. I don't think he's that bad of a player, but I just think, again, he needs to be...
care.
He needs to be in the right system, and I think the Warriors didn't take any of that bullshit. Whereas, the fact that he knew that, he had all these other stars around him, when he comes in thinking he's the star right off the bat, it's never going to bode well. But if he goes to a team, let's say he went to the Clippers, for example, knowing that he had all those 4 guys that are all NBA caliber players.
He's Bones Highland on steroids.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, they wouldn't take that shit, and they would put him in line. But I think because there's no real bona fide veteran or all NBA caliber player, and Kuz is the veteran, but he's no more mature than Jordan Poole. You know what I mean in that sense. And I'm not taking away from Kuz. I think he's a great person, great player. But at the end of the day, you need guys who have that veteran dog in him that will call
Paul Pierce. I'm sure you saw that as well.
Yeah. Call that bullshit out when they see it. And I think Kevin Garnett said it as well. I'm gonna see if I can. If I can pull the quote up. Yeah. But yeah, go on.
It was along the lines of I think Paul Pierce was Jordan Poole's found out what it's really like being that number 1 option, how hard it is, and it's so true, because Paul Pierce has been in that situation as a young guy, you know, got his, killed it, you know, 30 points per game, but the Boston Celtics were one of the worst teams in the league. And then they slowly got better. Like, he's gone through every phase in his career. The downs, being a terrible team in the East, but then being the main guy and they sneak in the playoffs, being a championship team, maybe being a secondary, or you would say he's first, but nevertheless, you have to sacrifice when Kevin Garnett's on your team. Jordan Poole just doesn't go about it the right way. So
yeah, he goes, there's confidence and then there's arrogance. Not too late, Jordan Poole's got to lock in some more. Like,
it's true.
It's true because, like, he was talking about that, specifically referencing that thing with Porzingis. You know, like, you're basically disrespecting a guy like Porzingis, who obviously is one of the best shot blockers in this league and, you know, one of the best players that we have in this league. He's obviously not a top 10 or 15 player, but he's, you know, he's more...
He's a talent. Top 15 talent.
Exactly. So the fact that, you know, Jordan Poole can go out there and just think he can, like, you know, take the piss out of other players. It's just, it is a joke. And like I said, I could harp on all day about it, but I think we emphasized it enough, and I think we know that he definitely has been the biggest disappointment thus far from a player perspective, not only just in this week and a bit, but probably for the whole season thus far. And not more can be added to that besides what we've already said.
Well, I hope for your sake, being a Wizards fan, you know, he can kind of turn the corner, but I don't think it's likely. But at least, hey, it's not all looking bad. Denny, Tyus, Bilal, heaps there. So,
and if we can get a good draft pick with like Ron Holland or, you know, Alex Sarr or something like that, yeah, I think that core of Alex Sarr, Denny, and then, you know, hopefully we can acquire like a genuine star point guard. I think Tyus, yeah, he's great, but I still think we need one guy like a
John Wall.
like a Haliburton caliber kind of point guard in terms of like...
Hopefully that's Bilal.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think he's got potential to do that, but I just think in terms of a guy that can, you know, push the tempo and get other guys involved, be willing. I think Tyus is good like that, but I just don't think I think he's really better off being like a backup, in my opinion.
I was about to say something wild. Delon Wright, the fan.
Oh, God, not a chance.
We'll move on to our...
I was going to say biggest team disappointment now, or biggest surprise, I should say. So for me, I don't know if you've got the same team. I think you've got a different team. But for me, the biggest surprise thus far is the Houston Rockets. Just from, you know, obviously where they were last year, picking fourth in the draft, you know, them playing like a horrible style of basketball, very selfish brand of basketball under Steven Silas, Jalen Green, chucking up any shot he wanted. Kevin Porter Jr., you know, no longer on the roster, but obviously playing, you know, that hero ball kind of style. It didn't bode well for them, and obviously they didn't utilize Alperen Şengün enough. And then obviously this year, Ime Udoka coming in with as the new coach, Fred VanVleet as an acquisition, Dylan Brooks as an acquisition. The emergence of Alperen Şengün is probably the offense being run through him. Jalen Green playing to a more efficient level and, you know, playing to the level we expect him to play and sort of understanding how to play proper basketball. Tari Eason, you know, Jabari Smith Jr., all these guys emerging as well, coming together and playing a really good style of basketball. They've beaten the Kings twice. They've beaten the Lakers. They've beaten the Nuggets. Unlucky to be knocked off by the Clippers today. That's 5 wins nearly against teams that should be right in the mix come playoff time. So for me, from where they were last year to where they are now and contending for, you know, playoff berths or at the very least a playing spot, I think it can't be discredited. And for me, I didn't sort of see it coming. I saw it coming because I kind of felt like Ime Udoka, anywhere he goes to coach, you know, that team stands a chance to do well. But you obviously didn't expect this kind of level early on in the season. So for me, they were the biggest surprise.
My biggest surprise, I'm not going to lie, like, I could say Houston as well, but for the sake of the pod, I'm going to say stick with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I feel like, yeah, they started on fire, obviously, and Cat didn't start too well. He's turned it up recently. Scoring numbers have gone up. Maybe some nights he's not as efficient as he should be as a big guy, but we're seeing glimpses of that star Cat. We're seeing Anthony Edwards go to work, although he did struggle somewhat today, and they lost to the Phoenix Suns. But besides that, I think past week 3-3, that 3 wins, sorry. Anthony Edwards is doing his thing. The whole team's just clicking. Naz Reid's playing his role. Gobert is having that ascension to that big dominant guy that he once was upon a time. And yeah, that's a surprise to me because I didn't think the Wolves were going to be on fire this early in the season because I'm not used to seeing the Wolves start well. I'm used to seeing the Wolves crumble at the start, slowly, even it out at 500 towards the All-Star break, crumble at the end. But they've started well, and I think it's sustainable, and I think they are legit. So, yeah, that's a surprise. Wolves being legit, you can't deny that.
Like we mentioned at the start with the key takeaways, if, Cat can maintain consistency in his play throughout the season, lock in defensively, which we obviously know once upon a time he was capable of as a number 1 draft pick coming out of Kentucky. That's what the hype was about, like the fact that he could defend at a high level compared to a guy like Jahlil Okafor, who was obviously the 3rd pick in that draft. The battle of the number ones. But no, we know what Cat's capable of, and I'm going to harp on this constantly, and I think Cat's best and Cat's worst, there's such a big gap between it, and it frustrates me because I know, the kind of skill set, the tools that this guy possesses. I know we've been harping on, those are the 2 key words of the day, skill set and tools. But, just like how solid of a player he is, I think we expect more from him, and I think he's the key to Minnesota obtaining success throughout the season alongside Ant. The other guys, we sort of know what to expect from him, but I think Cat is the big outlier. So if he can, like I said, narrow the difference between his best basketball and his worst, the Minnesota Timberwolves can definitely continue to make a lot of noise in the association. But moving on to Team of the Week.
Team of the Week.
Out in the West. We'll start this off. So, Marcus, I'll let you take it away.
Team of the Week out West. Wait, have we done our biggest disappointment for...
Oh, I jumped the gun. Yeah. You jumped the gun last time. I'll jump the gun this time.
Team biggest disappointment. We might have the same one as well here. This team, for me, it's just they're not where they should be. I think that's 7 and 6, almost at
6 and 7.
6 and 7. So they're below 500, and it's the lead guy in Stephen Curry. Your guess has to be the Golden State Warriors. Draymond's not having the best year. Clay's been really underwhelming, despite I think he's trying. That's all you can ask from a guy like Clay. It's happened before. He's had his lows, but he seems to always bounce back. So I don't expect him to be that all-star, but I think, it's Klay Thompson. He can score the ball. He will be back eventually. But to me, it's more disappointing the fact that I thought for them to ascend into being title contenders, that they did trade Jordan Poole. I thought this was going to be the year Kuminga was really going to shine and be in the rotation more and start, and they would invest in his development because of how promising he's been. And Moses Moody, to me, is someone who deserves to play more. There's no flaws in his game. He's a 3-and-D guy. He's been doing that since he was at the Razorbacks. And I just feel like for them to ascend to be a championship contender, the younger guys are what are going to push them to do so. They traded Wiseman. They got rid of Poole. Now it's time for them to not be so one-dimensional. Know the facts of the matter. That Draymond, the best is behind him, probably. He's not scary anymore. Anthony Edwards is going at him. I don't think anybody fears Draymond, and I don't think Clay is going to get any better. So, it's just disappointing to me how the rotation is ran. And despite how good Steph's been, to me, it's just a backseat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually said, the fact of the matter is Steph can win you games of basketball, but you're only as good as your next best player. And
who is it?
Exactly. The acquisition of Chris Paul, obviously, it's done wonders when Steph's on the court, and the ability to get open looks for the younger guys, your Pajimskis, who I think is a really underrated player. I think he could almost be that second guy.
You reckon? This season?
Maybe not this season, but I definitely think in spurts this year he's going to play an important role. You saw even when he got minutes late in that game, and he put on 5 or 8 points in that last quarter, nearly tipped it in to get the game back tight, and he was so dirty on himself. But I think you need more production out of guys like Moody, Kuminga. Kuminga's only shooting 20% or 18% from 3 after the promise that he showed in preseason. Again, how much do we take from preseason basketball? Jordan Poole dropped 41 in a preseason game, and he's obviously had a disappointing year. But they've got enough. I feel like they've got enough guys that can do it. It's just they need that one.
There's a name who I forgot, and I'm sure you'll probably bring him up.
Dario Saric?
No. Former All-Star.
Former All-Star.
Maple.
Oh, Andrew Wiggins. Yes. Andrew Wiggins again, like an All-Star a few seasons ago. Obviously had that layoff last year for personal reasons or whatever it was. But ever since he's come back, I just don't feel like he's been the same kind of player. And I just feel like I said, they need that one guy to be that second star to Steph Curry, because Clay's obviously been in a really bad slump, and maybe age is catching up to him, or injuries are catching up to him. And we just have to accept the fate and the reality that this isn't just a slump, and this is genuinely what Klay Thompson has become, as sad as it is to say. Watch him drop like 35 points on like 10 threes the next game.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. I think we just have to expect that's the reality that we're in with this Warriors team. Like the dynasty may be officially over. You know what I mean? Did I call it too soon? Maybe. But, you know, with Steph Curry, the way he's playing, you can always give him a chance. But, yeah, for how high the hopes were for this team, acquiring Chris Paul, everyone's saying like they're still gonna, the championship window is still open. All it takes is, like I said, Steph Curry to be out. We can't rely on Steph Curry's health either.
Chris Paul's a grandpa at this point.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And he's not really a threat to score, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's like has games where he has 2 points
Still
and 12
great.
assists. No, and like I said, I'm not taking away from that, but I just think for how much hype they, came into the season with, they haven't lived up to it. And the other guys that, Steph was, alongside in those championship runs in Draymond, Klay, and even, like I said, a guy like Chris Paul who's getting on in age, it's just not going to be enough to win you a championship, especially with the amount of firepower that's in the league now, and with all these young guys up and coming and, merging into superstardom. It's just tough, but I think there's still a disappointment regardless of, the circumstance of Steph being injured or whatnot. They just don't have that firepower that people expected them to, and for us thinking that they were going to still be a championship contender, it's obviously hasn't worked out that way, and for that reason, they are the biggest disappointment because they're below 500. They're on a bit of a slump right now. They're losing games. But yeah, you can't rule them out with Steph Curry playing the way he is. He's putting up almost exact same numbers, if not better, than his unanimous MVP year. But then again, I just don't think they're at that level that we expected them to be at. I didn't really think they were championship contenders in the first place, but I think a lot of people did have those hopes for them. So like the fact that, they are below 500 after all the hype that came into the season.
Especially when we saw them get rid of Wiseman and Poole. They're like, oh, well, they're obviously going in that championship direction if they're getting rid of the young core. Because once you get rid of the young core, it's championship or bust, really. And if they were to keep all those guys, I don't think they would be in any better of a situation. It's just like...
But it's like the questions would never have been asked, or they would never have been raised if they obviously kept it, and like it would have been just a different sort of situation that they're in. But like going back to that Pajimski point, I do rate him really highly. I think he's just got this feel to him like that he knows that he can hang with the best of them in this league. And I know he's a young guy. I know he's, inexperienced, but that being a lefty, he looks really good out there. And
well, I needed
Brandon Pajimski.
I know him, but I don't. I know
and he's a gritty defender too.
He's Jack Harlow kind of.
Yeah, he's a gritty defender too. He gets into the passing lanes. He can stick D. He's a decent 3-point shooter. Can get into the lane. Like I said, he's got that he's got that aggressiveness to his game. I feel like he's not afraid of the big moment. And that's why
Kukoc about him
a little bit, yeah. But I think he's a bit shorter than Kukoc. I think he's more of a guard. So, yeah, I just think if he can continue to develop, and he's in the right situation, being in the Warriors, I think he can definitely be that guy that could take a jump in the next couple of years and be a genuine 20-point per game scorer in this league. That's an early call from me, but
I hope that comes true.
Yeah, I really like the looks of him, honestly. So that's like a bright spot in my opinion from the season thus far, from what I've seen from the Warriors. But at the end of the day, we can unanimously agree that they are a disappointment to start the season off. Moving on to the team of the week in the West. I'll let you start on this. I think we've both got the same team of the week. We've pretty much spoken about them for most of this episode. It's been a very heavy theme of this team, but it's the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'll let you start and justify why we have them as the team of the week.
Timberwolves. I mean, I kind of talked about it a lot in my surprise just before. But, yeah, I mean, what more could you kind of like, it's crazy to me. Like, I didn't think Timberwolves would ever start off on fire like this. At least in my, not short-lived, but ever since I watched basketball, I've never seen the Timberwolves do this before. So to me, it's pretty crazy.
They've always been a bit of a basket case.
Yeah. So 7-2,
8-3,
8-3 now.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it was a bit unlucky because that game that they lost to the Suns, it was on a back-to-back from the in-season tournament. So like, you kind of expect
it'd be a bit lethargic.
Yeah, especially on a road trip, on the back end of a road trip, you're always going to like...
They weren't going to win that one.
Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, like for them to be in that position, it's great. And I agree with you as well. I think they're my team of the week in the West as well. And Edwards being obviously emerging into superstardom. I think we've spoken enough about why we believe the Timberwolves, are the team of the week. But not just that, but just like on a whole, why they are in the position that they're in. Yeah, 100%. But we'll go on to the team of the week in the East. And this is another team, a heavy theme of this team as well in this episode. But it's the Indiana Pacers, and I think you agree. And arguably, they could be in the same position as the Timberwolves. They should be 8-3 if that wasn't for that last possession against the Hornets. Tyrese kept them in that game, but they're just clicking on all cylinders. They ended the 76ers 8-game winning streak in terms of how well oiled that machine is. Players are getting or they're extracting value out of every single player that's in that team. Like Obi Toppin, like I said, he looks like a different player. He started in most of the games. New York Knicks had the shackles on him. Tom Thibodeau didn't really rate him, but he's really showing us why he was so highly regarded coming into the draft out of Dayton, and why the Knicks did take a leap of faith to pick him at number 8, and why they rated him so highly, despite the fact that they already probably had a few power forwards or had quite a stacked front court. So, I think not more can be said. This team would be a lottery team without Tyrese at the helm. Their talent, yes, it's really deep, but you don't have any like really bona fide superstars outside of Tyrese Haliburton. You can, like I said, argue the case that Miles Turner is Miles Turner is like an all-star level player when he's at his best. But outside of that, these guys, they're just a really well-oiled machine, and they just play for one another. And I think that's the big reason why they've started the season the way they have and been at the top of or close to the top of the Eastern Conference. So for that reason, I've got him as my team of the week in the East.
I had him as well for my team of the week in the East. And leeching off that, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think I've talked enough about Indiana during this episode. So, Tyrese running the show. Depth chart's amazing. Players are playing career basketball. And if they're struggling, they're getting the best looks possible. And it's because of Tyrese Haliburton, who, if we're doing player of the week for the East, it has to be Tyrese. We
100%.
talked about how he's an MVP candidate. MVP candidate. Words can't even describe how impactful he's been for that team, and he's just taken a new look to the whole game of basketball, I guess. Like, nobody's doing what Tyrese is doing right now. Like, I guess you could argue in terms of recently Ben Simmons, but then Ben Simmons isn't a 50% three-point shooter. So
Ben Simmons isn't even a 25-point per game scorer.
Exactly. So, he's truly changing the game. And there's a reason why we've nicknamed him the System, because he is the entire system at the Indiana Pacers. Like you said, you take him off that team, they're probably a back-end lottery team at best. Benedict's probably averaging 22 points, shooting like 35% from 3 and like 39 from the field. So it's like he literally is a system, and there's only a few guys in the league who you can call a system. Probably Luka, Jokic, Embiid this year, I would say, and Tyrese. I don't know who else would be. I wouldn't even say Anthony Edwards is the system of Minnesota. But Tyrese, 100%. So play of the week.
Justified. You've summed it up. I've already spoken enough about Tyrese Haliburton in this episode, so I think we'll leave it at that. We'll keep it short and sharp. But one other thing I'll mention. His last 2 games span has been incredible. 32 assists, no turnovers. He had 25 and 17 against the Sixers the night before where they lost. Tyrese Maxey obviously had 50 that game. He got the better of the Tyrese battle that game, and then the next game,
he lit him up.
33, 7 and 15. No turnovers, 7 threes.
How can you have no turnovers and have those assists
and have the ball in his hands as much as he does?
In transition.
Yeah.
Like, where you play basketball, obviously went on the NBA, but to that level, like you're running in transition, that would be,
it's incredible.
It's damn near impossible because you're running at full speed. Not everybody's always going to run with you. Obviously, Tyrese would, put that into everybody, like run, because that's how you get a score. It just shows how good of a how good of a passer he really is, and how pinpoint, like he's always on the money. Like he's not just jump passing, it's like the seams of the ball.
Yeah, 100%. It just makes life easy for his teammates. But one other thing, he became the first player since 1977, since turnovers were tracked, to become a player that had back-to-back 25.15 assist games with no turnovers. It's like he's doing historical things right now, and at the end of the day, like I said, big reason why
he's an MVP candidate.
Correct, 100%. But moving on to the Western Conference Player of the Week, and again, no surprise, no secret here. It matches the theme of the episode, and it's none other than our boy Anthony Edwards, Kermit from Hustle. But he's like I said, what more can be said? Again, leading that team to the number one defensive rating in the NBA. Arguably, the key reason why they're winning a lot of games, and not arguably, he is the key reason why they're winning games. Obviously, there's other contributors and guys that are playing their role in that team. But the fact of the matter is, he's averaging 27 points, 6 boards, 7 boards, whatever it is, 5 assists, putting up really great numbers. Leading that team to big wins against the Celtics, the Nuggets, the Warriors twice. Like, there's nothing that more needs to be said about why the Timberwolves are in the position they're in. Obviously, like I said, we've harped on the fact that they do have an even spread of contributors across the board, but without Anthony Edwards emerging into superstardom, and your call about him being a potential MVP this year, it might eventually come to fruition.
I was about to say, like, people got on my case. No, not about that, actually. They got on our case when we did the top 10 shooting guard about Booker and Anthony. Like, how is Book not one?
Yeah.
Well, what now?
Yeah.
Because Anthony Edwards is leading this team potentially to a top 4 seed, playing like an MVP. Obviously, there's heaps of guys who play like MVPs, but he's playing like the basketball of his life.
Yeah.
The Wolves are killing it, and I don't think it's going to slow down. So sometimes people got to relax with the takes a little bit when they get on us, because historically, like, maybe we've got a couple wrong, but for the most part, I think we get them.
We're fair. We're fair with our assessment. We're fair with what we say about, certain things that are happening in the NBA world. And, sometimes we might go a little bit hit and miss, but for the most part, I think, we provide an unbiased opinion, unbiased take. And I think that speaks for itself with this channel, and I think that's why people obviously have gravitated to it, even though we're not at 1,000 yet. So just a reminder,
hit that sub button.
Yeah, hit that sub button. That's like that's a little I guess reminder for me to just let everyone know again. It's been an hour and 30 odd minutes since we've started recording, but hit that sub button, get us to 1,000 subs. But pretty much that leads us now to our last segment of the episode, which is Fact or cap. Stop the cap. No, but this is our favorite segment of the episode, because we get to pose a question about a certain situation that's happening in the NBA and pretty much ask the other guy, being Marcus in this situation, whether we think that's fact or cap. And then, the other guy provides their 2 cents as to why they've chosen that particular answer. So looking forward to this. We've got some saucy ones in this particular segment.
I'll let you kick it off. We'll just scrap the Lakers one because I just don't know yet.
Yeah, good call. So this I saw on a Twitter, from someone on Twitter, I should say, or X now, whatever you call it. I've still got the old app. I haven't.
Twitter.
Twitter.
What is this X now? The threads. What's going on with the world?
But I saw this guy tweet this, and I'm going to ask you, is it fact or cap? So this didn't come directly from me, but I just thought it'd be an interesting one to ask. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world right now, and the margin to second place is substantial. Is that fact or is that cap?
Man, get the hell out of here. Cap. No, it's got to be cap. It's not substantial. Like, to me, the best player in the world, I'm objective. I don't like... I'm willing to take in every single thing, but to me, it's Luka Doncic. even though Jokic is the MVP, that's just what I believe in. That's what I think. And I love Jokic too. I just think Luka's the best player in the world. And I think Luka, Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, that's the four who you can all make a case for. I'm not mad at any one of those. So, no, I don't think it's substantial. I think Jokic is the champ. But, yeah, I don't think it's substantial. No chance. That's just what I think. I don't really have any logical, I guess, stats or anything. It's just what I believe in. I think that, I think Luke is the best player in the world. Like, the Mavs are flying.
See what he had today?
No, what did he have?
26, 16, and 18. Nearly had a 20-20.
But
they lost,
But
though.
Steph is just...
Yeah.
But let's talk about Steph, because two-time champ. One-time champ. Nah, four-time. What am I saying? Four-time champ. No, five-time champ.
Is he?
He's a five-time champ.
Yeah, five-time champ.
He's a two-time MVP.
Yeah.
So he has to be so much better than Luka. Nah, well, we're just taking the mickey because of that. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you want to watch it after the video, there's a Luka versus Steph debate. So I'm rambling on a lot.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's a substantial thing, and I think Luka's the best player in the world.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think it's so close to call. I want to say Jokic is the number one player in the world, but I think what Luka does for that team is just hands down this year a lot more impactful. But at the end of the day, I'll read these numbers out to you. Jokic is averaging 29.7 points per game, which is sixth in the league. He's number one in rebounds at 14.1, and he's fourth in assists at 9.2. Shooting 57.3% from the field, and this is the one area that you could probably put a knock on his game, but 30% from the 3-point line. True shooting percentage is 64.9%. But
how long do you reckon he could do this for, realistically? Like, I don't think he'll ever, like, if he doesn't get injured,
or
he's
if he
not
doesn't
athletic.
Get bored of the NBA and go spend time with his horses in Serbia.
I reckon he might just escape. Like, one random year, he'll just retire.
And then he just do it and lay low and no,
hey guys.
I don't know, man. I think knowing, even though he doesn't seem like he gives a shit, I feel like he genuinely does want to be a really good player.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to be recognized as one of the greats. More so for because he's a proud Serb. I think he wants to put Serbia on the map and make Serbia proud, and obviously put put their name on the map. Obviously, we know there's been a lot of historical players from that part of the world in Croatia, Serbia, really legends of the game. But I think he wants to make a stamp on him being one of the greatest players, and the fact that he was from Europe and from a small country like Serbia. I think he's got something to prove in that aspect. But then again, who knows? I could be wrong, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's as substantial as it may be, but you could almost say 1A, 1B, Jokic, Doncic, Jokic. Yeah, it's a toss of the coin, really, how impactful they are to their teams. But I do believe they're the top two players in the NBA at this point in time right now.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'll move on to my next fact or cap. This one, I don't even know if I fully believe it, but I'm just going to... I'll just say it. Okay, so fact or cap, the traditional big man, it's coming back. Mark Williams, Nick Claxton, Jalen Duran, Alperen Sengun, you could argue somewhat. I know he can play make as well, and he has it in his hands a little bit, but I'll put him in the mix. Derek Lively. There's a lot of bigs who maybe don't struggle shooting, but they don't shoot as much, and they're more back to the baskets type of players. Do we think that a traditional big can still dominate in today's 3-point heavy game? And do we think maybe bigs are going back to being traditional as well, as much as we see guys like Chet?
More of an acceptance for traditional bigs now, rather than it just being...
Or is it just all they have to be like guards?
I think, me personally, I think it's hard to say this one. I want to say fact in this. So I'll justify both sides. Fact, because like I said, you see the guys that you mentioned just then, and they have a really big role to play on their team, and the teams that are utilizing them in that sense are definitely getting the best out of them through that and getting the best for their team. The only reason I would say cap is a lot of those guys still have the skills and possess perimeter oriented skills, even though they might not necessarily handle the ball on the perimeter or like create like a Chet or a Wemby. I think they still need to be able to be really adept at, you know, guarding out on the perimeter.
Yeah, defensively.
Yeah, switching with like, you know, the versatility to be able to switch on pick and rolls. In terms of, you know, dribble handoffs, you know, bringing the ball up at times like an Alperen Şengün does. I still think those other guys you mentioned outside Alperen, they're a bit more traditional. So yeah, like I think it's fact in that sense, but I think it's also capped because like, yeah, the ability to switch, that's the reason why the Claxtons, the Mark Williamses, all those kind of guys you mentioned, Derek Lively, why they're so important to their team and why they're being utilized more in the starting lineups is because of the fact that they have that versatility to be able to like keep in front of smaller guys and whatnot. And they do have the ability to obviously shoot the ball, might just not possess it in terms of their teams not allowing them to utilize that because of the system that they play in, and vice versa, etc. So, yeah, I think you could argue that it is fact because it was a lot more than what we saw like maybe 5-6 years ago on the birth of this whole 3-point revolution. But in terms of, you know, still having that perimeter sort of skill set, I feel like most centers still have that, and they need to have somewhat of a perimeter game to succeed.
Yeah, just don't be like Bol.
Yeah,
he's
that's
like
what I mean.
Shooting guard, but defensive. Like he shows flashes of being so great.
Yeah.
Like, but then you actually watch him and you're like, this guy's not really progressing.
100%.
He's literally a 2 guy who's 7'2".
I hate all the casual comments as well, saying like, "Oh, Bol is exactly like Wemby." No, they're not even the same. Wemby's got basketball IQ. Wemby.
Defensively.
Agility as well. Like his agility and quickness.
He can post up.
Yeah, he doesn't look awkward when he's dribbling. I feel like Bol when he's like dribbling and when he's doing
Obviously, there's potential Bol, but how long can we kind of...
It's the attitude side of it as well. I feel like Wemby, like, you know, the diligence that he has with, you know, his preparation in terms of the stretching work he does, the band work, being able to like do the splits at 7'5".
Damn,
like if that doesn't show like that he prepares the right way and, you know, he takes care of his body, that's... one side of things that obviously a lot of people don't see. And Bol, yeah, he's got the tools and everything in his bag to be able to, you know, be a successful NBA player. But I think it's the mindset thing and it's the attitude that he does possess that probably holds him back. And Wemby plays more like a traditional big in the sense, even though, yeah, he still handles the ball and whatnot. But like when you put him in the paint and you like, you know, he seals his opponent, like you throw it up to him.
He can do a jump hook.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Bol just wants to, he literally wants to play like a shooting guard.
Exactly.
And like shoot through, like it's not.
Yeah. I don't know how we got to a Wemby versus Bol debate in the traditional video.
It's kind of popping right now.
100%.
Might have to clickbait it.
Clickbait it. No, but in terms of, the traditional side of thing, I think, you know, they can still succeed. Even to a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, you know, like who came into the NBA in 2011 when, you know, traditional big man was still utilized quite heavily. You see he's made some changes to his game as well to be able to be a bit more perimeter oriented. And even a guy like Brook Lopez, a guy who couldn't hit a jump shot to save himself and he came into the league in 2008, the same year as Derrick Rose, and, you know, came in as like a back to the basket scorer. The reason why he was a top 10 pick, for him to change his game up and to make those changes necessary to have longevity in this league, to be able to be a good 3-point shooter, be one of the best big men 3-point shooters ever. Yeah. That's just a testament to him. So I think, from a traditional sense, you can still be a traditional big in this today's day and age, but I still think you do need to have the ability to not only possess those skills, but to show that you can improve on it, work on it, to like keep your spot in the roster and the rotation, if that makes sense. Whether you utilize that skill set, it's a different story. Whether your team needs you to utilize that, that's besides the point. But the fact is, like, I feel like these guys...
Defensively spot on. Like, you have to be able to adapt, guard, or like, you have to be willing to guard
and switch
a point guard.
Yeah.
Like, even if it never happens, you have to have like the mindset to like towards, if like the coach put me in the game, like I could be switched on to anybody.
Yeah, 100%. And even like if it's a Zubats, I think it's another guy that you could probably say, even though he's not a young traditional big, he's still pretty young, but like even him, he's not like the most potent perimeter oriented player. But, you know, for what he does, like
he does
he had
enough.
30 and 27 last year, whatever it was, nearly a 30-30. And like That's why the Clippers have him in the starting lineup night in, night out, because he does what he needs to. Like, yeah, he gets cooked by Luka on the switch, but he's willing to actually switch out and, like, keep in front of Luka and, like, just put a hand in his face. Obviously, it's tough no matter who's guarding Luka Doncic on any given night. Yeah. That's going to happen to them. But, like...
It frustrates me because I know Bol could.
Yeah.
But he won't.
It's the attitude thing. It's the mindset. Yeah. It's nothing to do with his skill set or his talent, but... That's besides the point, but I didn't really answer it. But I'm gonna say slight cap. Can I weak cappuccino, a weak cap? It's kind of yes, but kind of no. So that one's like kind of on the fence. I don't really want to be saying cap or fact for either of them because I feel like you can make the argument for both sides. But for me, I'm gonna say cap just because I feel like they still have perimeter skills. So don't come at me, but that's just what I have to think about that one. But the next one for me, the next question I got posed to you is, despite Pascal Siakam still producing night in, night out, at age 29, it's time for the Raptors to trade him and get as much value in a trade package as possible before his decline starts. Is that fact or cap?
That's fact. I feel like why would you hold on to Pascal Siakam now that Scotty Barnes has emerged into NBA stardom? OG's, I know he's not like healthy right now, but OG's just a younger guy who, to me, does what Pascal does. I'm not saying more, but he offers more versatility as a guard. Yeah. And Pascal's great, but his value's only going to be diminished. And I don't think, like, in the future, I don't think you're getting much out of Pascal Siakam more than one first-round pick, where right now you might be able to get 2 and a decent young player. Specifically for like contending teams, there's plenty. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like Dallas or something could throw something together where you get a guy like, I don't know. There's teams out there who would want Pascal. Like I was going to say Knicks, but nah, because Randall, maybe I just know
Chicago Bulls.
Kings could, but then they got Sabonis. Yeah, the Bulls is just nowhere land. I don't know. I know there would be a team, like I guarantee it's going to be the most random team.
The Lakers.
The 76ers could. I mean, with the 2 first rounders that they did get. The Lakers did it. Oh, my God.
It'd be such a Lakers
thing. Name chase.
The Warriors?
The Warriors with Draymond, that would be fun. That would be a bit...
I don't know. I just feel like, there could be a wild one that comes into play. But obviously, we know at this stage they're not looking at doing anything with him. But I thought it was just more of a...
No, it's facts, though.
Yeah, 100% it's facts. Because at the end of the day, the older the player gets, the less years they have in the NBA and the less a team values them. So I think they need to bite the bullet now, pull the trigger and build around that young core that they got. Because Pascal, I think his best is slowly starting to...
chip away.
I'm not saying he's still not that player. I still think he can have nights like that, but that consistency and that level that we once saw from him maybe could be slightly...
That all-NBA, potential first team, no, I don't think again. And especially if the Raptors aren't, they're not terrible, but they're not competing, so it's a waste of time.
To be honest, as much as this might sound like, a hot take or like people might come at me for this, but I think that championship run maybe... inflated his value a little bit more than we...
I agree, to be honest. As good of a player he is, the fact that he was a proven winner, and I don't think he even fully... I believe that year he would have probably averaged 18 and 8. So he wasn't that full all-star version, but he was showing he could be a third option.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like that them winning that championship, him playing a decent role and being an important part of that run to the championship alongside Kawhi Leonard, Fred VanVleet, and company, that just elevated his stock slightly more.
Since then, he's forever been in trade talks.
Yeah, 100%.
Ongoing. Maybe the Pacers. I don't know if you... I would almost take a risk.
Yeah,
I know they won't compete.
Then Obi Toppin, what happens with him. So I don't know. I feel like, they're kind of in a good spot right now. It's going to be a tough one. I really can't name
some team, he's too good not to be put to use, but... I'll move on to the next one. This one revolves around the Clippers. And to me, fact or cap, Russell Westbrook is the X factor for this team. And because Paul George, Kawhi, James are all obviously going to start. They're all going to be, threats for the Clippers, scoring options. But Russell, he's the one guy who won't change. Like, I've noticed watching the Clippers play together, they kind of overcomplicate it when James has come to the team. You know, those open shots, Kawhi, PG often taking an extra dribble. But Westbrook, we know he's got to be attacking the rim. We know he's got to take corner threes. We know he's got to settle for mid-range jump shots. And they almost need him to do that. No matter what he shoots from the floor, the fact that he's going to be willing and always like going to take the same amount of shots, he's what's going to push them into further championship contender. So contention. Is that fact or cap?
That's fact. I think you can't have all four of these guys on the court at the one time, especially in the starting lineup. There's only one basketball at the end of the day. And yes, we know that, you know, certain players like PG don't necessarily need to have the ball in their hand to be able to create shots. You know, he's a really high level catch and shoot type of player as well. Obviously prefers that shot creation and whatnot. But in terms of guys like Kawhi Leonard, they probably need the ball in their hands a bit more. James Harden, obviously we know that, and Russell Westbrook to an extent, obviously we know that he loves to have the ball in his hands. So I feel like off the bench, being able to maximize the energy that they can get out of him as a bench player, as that X factor, and then that energy that he brings can rub off to that second unit. And I feel like guys from that second unit can probably thrive a lot more. And you know, with Westbrook's playmaking ability, being able to get guys the looks that they need. Even though like some people say he's like a bit of a stat padder, I still think he's a great passer. As much as he turns it over and whatnot, makes some rash decisions, he can be a really good facilitator and playmaker. So I think it wouldn't be the worst thing for the Clippers to do. And obviously Russ, like I said earlier in the video, he put out that quote to say like he's willing to come off the bench and, you know, sacrifice for the better of the team to get the best out of it. And I think with James Harden, PG and Kawhi in that starting group, and even if they stagger minutes, get guys two at a time playing on the court at one time, the big four that they have, then that's going to just maximize their potential and their chemistry. So, yeah, I think it's definitely fact, and I think it's something that the Clippers should invest in and should look into doing, and it'll obviously help them in the long run with, you know, the chemistry and, you know, getting wins on the board.
100%.
So for my next one, not the Dallas Mavericks, that's the next one. Damian Lillard can still be Damian Lillard night in, night out alongside Giannis, but Giannis alongside Dame hasn't looked the same. Fact or cap?
I think, well, at the start I would have said fact.
Yeah.
But now watching Milwaukee play, I'm going to have to say cap because I don't think either of these guys are looking like they're themselves right now. I think Dame's stinking it up too. He's shooting like 29% from three last time I checked. 22 points per game. It's just not Dame-like. Giannis obviously struggled really bad. Like, he struggled today. I think he scored like 16 points, which for Giannis is
10 shots.
10 shots for Giannis. Like, the amount of that guy gets to the paint, I don't know, just they're overcomplicating it. Obviously, it happens all the time.
I feel like they're trying to take a back seat to one another. Like,
it's like the
Giannis,
Heat.
like, here, Dame, you take the, but oh no, Giannis, you take it.
It's the Dwayne Wade LeBron thing when they got to Miami.
It's like, early growing pains. I think they'll get over it.
They will. But I would say cap for now because neither of them look like they're full, you know,
versions
full
of themselves. Yeah, full form, 100%. I think one thing I'm going to add about that is how funny was it that when both of them were out of when Giannis was out of the lineup and Dame played against the Raptors, he had probably one of his best games of the season. And then when when Dame was out of the lineup against the Pacers, Giannis ended up with 54 and 12 the day after he got ejected or whatever it was. And it just shows like clearly they're more comfortable playing by themselves. The only reason I put this question forward is because even though Dame's struggling, Dame's played with superstar caliber players in the past, like LaMarcus Aldridge.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about LA.
Yeah, and then obviously that was in his early stages of his career. And then he's played with another fellow all-star level player in CJ McCollum, obviously. Obviously, CJ's never made the all-star team, but like in terms of production, you could argue that he's
scoring like shot numbers.
Yeah, and taking like a decent amount of shots away from Dame. So I kind of felt like that's why Dame could still utilize it and be used to it, whereas Giannis hasn't really had that kind of a player. He came into the league more as like a backseat kind of player because obviously he was really raw when he came in, and then obviously as he emerged the guys around him weren't really like bona fide superstars or like, the level of player like a Dame is in terms of, Chris Middleton. Yeah, he was an all-star. Drew Holiday, again, an all-star, but not really like a high-level scorer. Has the capability to drop 50 points on any given night, but obviously known more for his defensive side. That's the only reason I posed that question. But yeah, I think it's just growing pains. I think the chemistry will come. I think they'll work each other out. I think they'll work out how, one another does function, who's going to eventually be the guy that takes that number one. Because you have to have a clear-cut number one.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you're going to obviously coast your way through the season. You're going to struggle. You're going to have losses that you shouldn't be, taking on your win-loss column, and
you can't force. Like I know they're both really willing to make it work, so I think they will make it work and they will figure it out. And obviously, Giannis is the guy. He's like, Dame, this is your team, but something's telling me it has to be Giannis's team still.
100%.
But
we'll move on to the next one, which is
the next one. Fact or cap? Dallas Mavericks are championship contenders. They're 9-3 right now. Luke is on an absolute tear, playing like the MVP of the league. Lively stepped up. Kyrie's like, he's back. That's confirmed. And then your boy you were talking about before, like guys like Derrick Jones Jr., they're really stepping up. So everybody is just seeming to fill a void. Even if Grant Williams is underperforming, you got D Jones coming in. Like, it's a team filled with guys.
Tim Hardaway, underrated player at the moment. I'm going to cut you off there. I'm going to say fact on this. They haven't looked this good, honestly, since
the championship year.
Yeah, and even like the days when, the early, like that point in time when, KP and Luka were there, despite the fact, obviously, they didn't get over the hump, that whole bubble situation probably didn't really help them in that aspect. Even that year after, I know they made the Western Conference Finals under J. Kidd, but I feel like they haven't looked this good offensively since, obviously, Rick Carlisle was at the helm coaching them. So, in terms of, like Derrick Jones Jr., underrated acquisition, he's kind of filled that void, in my opinion, of a Dorian Finney-Smith kind of player. I feel like he's the Dorian Finney-Smith replacement. He can come in, he can hit threes, a much improved three-point shooter. He's athletic, he can defend. Like Grant Williams started off like the season like a house on fire, but then he sort of tapered off. He's probably hasn't lived up to, the certain expectations that we had of Grant Williams, but I think he's still coming out there. Still valuable. Tim Hardaway Jr., I think he's averaging like 19 points per game, 18.7, which is...
He's just a microwave.
Yeah, he is. And I think he was the key to them. I think last year struggled, probably being injured a little bit. Now he's like, looks healthy, he looks rejuvenated. I think he's the key to them. If Kyrie and Luka aren't having the best games, he needs to be the one that steps up.
And the fact they got him and Seth, like two microwave guys, come playoff time, that's going to be really important.
100%, especially when
they got the depth chart to win it all. Hot take, Dallas NBA champs this season.
Just have to wait and see on that one. But Derek Lively is like the other guy that's really impressed me. Like, he's fitted in seamlessly into that lineup, the starting lineup. I called it earlier. I said, like, if Dwight Powell's the starter, you're not getting anything done. I think Dwight Powell's still a serviceable player in the league, but
especially
just
not a backup.
Yeah, exactly. With like
on the bench.
Yeah. No, but in terms of what Derek Lively brings, it's just that youth, that rejuvenation of that center position that they've lacked. He reminds me of a young Tyson Chandler. And funnily enough, Tyson Chandler is mentoring the big men at the Dallas Mavericks at the moment. He's in like player development there. So the fact that, he has come back to the franchise, Derek Lively looks really, really good for their future. And that tandem of Luka and Derek Lively and that pick and roll going forward for years to come is going to be a really scary sight. And I think they look really good. And Kyrie's finally started to like be the player that we expected him to be alongside Luka. And I'm glad that he's willing to take a back seat to Luka as well. He realizes that it is Luka's team, and
turns out, after all, he doesn't have such a big ego, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think people, like I said, that's just a misconception that people had of...
They follow what he puts out on, and they kind of just label him as the bad guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Everybody's like somewhat of a bad, you know what I mean?
But, all in all, I agree with that take, and I believe it's big facts, and that they're not just here to make up numbers or just be pretenders this coming season. So I think, look out for them come playoff time, especially with Luka and Kyrie, both proven playoff performers. once they get into the big moment. That's why I was ashamed. It was a bit of a shame that they didn't make it to the playoffs last year, because I felt like those two in the playoffs
could cause an upset.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. But yeah, it's probably the best thing that they did to tank, because they ended up getting that 10th pick, and with that 10th pick, they managed to secure D-Live. So yeah, I'm happy with how it ended up for Dallas, because I really like the Dallas Mavericks. I do really like Luka Doncic. So moving on to the next one. My next fact or cap is Anthony Black should be the starting point guard for the Orlando Magic moving forward. Is this fact or cap, Marcus? I know that he's had a bit of a slump the last few games, but what do you make of that particular take?
I'm going to say fact, and I'm like a really big Markelle Fultz fan. Like, I will ride or die Markelle Fultz till the wheels fall off. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of not, because like, yeah, I feel like a time comes where you can only wish so much on someone's potential and like upside. At the end of the day, you got they're not winning. You know, Fultz has been there. He's done his due diligence. He's started games. He's had his moments, but it's like, what now? Like, you can't just ride someone's goat tail for that long. And I'll use Denver as an example of this. I feel like Moutier was another guy I was pretty high on growing up, and he had his moments. You know, as a rookie, as a sophomore, he had 20-point quarters against Boston. He had games where he went off, but then he also had games where he really struggled shooting, turned it over, much like a Fultz. And there was another guy, a shooting guard coming up from a draftee in Jamal Murray, similar to Anthony Black, who kind of has similar traits. And it's like, why would you not have that guy as your future point guard if he can do all the things that Fultz can do, but he can shoot the ball better and he has more defensive Actually, maybe not. Fultz is a good defender, but I just feel like, yeah, why would you not go with that guy when the history shows that the Fultz experiment hasn't all been a success. Although it's had its moments, it hasn't been a success. And for the Orlando Magic to take that step towards playoff contention, I think you have to ride or die with Anthony Black, like the Nuggets did with Jamal Murray.
100%. And then the fact of the matter is, like, they're obviously going for a bigger kind of lineup with Paolo, Franz as your small forward, power forward combination, Wendell Carter when he's healthy, and then at shooting guard. I mean, are we saying Jalen Suggs?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I would probably just this sounds, if I'm going with the big lineup,
Jet Howard?
Yeah, there's Jet, but then, I don't know, do you fully give up on Jonathan Isaac yet?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, in his peak years, he was catching shooting really well, shooting like 40% from threes, 7 feet, rebounds, plays defense. Like, I still want to see the best out of Isaac. I don't think he's
really
he's
showing
too
off.
good.
He's showing off what he's capable of because of
because of injuries.
Yeah.
But he's too good to be he's too good to not be playing 20 plus minutes a night, not 12 minutes a night.
100%. And even like I said, that then Anthony Black, 6'7" point guard, you know, that's a really scary lineup with a really big lineup that, you know, you can throw out there. And I think with his playmaking ability, it's very much in the mold of like Luka Doncic, Josh Giddey, Cade Cunningham, that kind of big 6'7", 6'8" point guard who can facilitate, can score when he needs to. He's got, you know, reasonable athleticism. I think actually more than reasonable. It's like a 40-inch vert at the combine. He's got all the athletic tools. So I think, obviously still young. So
let
I think
him mess up. Just let him have the green light, I reckon.
100%. Because like Orlando's kind of that interesting team right now anyway. They're on that bubble of being like a playing team, pushing towards the playoffs, but they're probably not quite there yet. So so may as well just give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, if it's not this year, obviously I think going forward after this season, they definitely need to invest in that, because I just don't think Markelle Fultz is the answer long term.
100% agree. My next one, Jamal Murray's injury troubles this year could be the difference between the Denver Nuggets winning an NBA championship or not winning an NBA championship. Is that fact or cap?
100% fact. We've seen it in the past few years. Obviously, Nikola Jokic had to do everything in certain playoff series when, you know, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. were unhealthy. Obviously, at that time, they didn't have Aaron Gordon, who's an important piece. And I think if at least one of those two guys in MPJ or Jamal Murray was to go down come playoff time, I feel like at least Aaron Gordon can carry that load offensively. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. Pause. But yeah, like in terms of what Aaron Gordon's able to carry that load that they previously might not have had as that fourth option, that obviously does come in handy. But Jamal Murray, we saw what he did in the playoffs last year. We saw how important he was as that 1-2 punch, not only as a scorer, but like being just involved in that 2-man game with Jokic. Whether he's obviously the ball handler or the pick man in that particular 2-man game, it's just that 1-2 punch, that chemistry that him and Jokic have, just makes the game easier for both of them. Makes the game easier for Jokic. Opens up so many looks for him, and then at the same time for Jamal Murray, having a guy that attracts so much defensive attention like Jokic does. Just makes the game easy for Jamal to get open shots, open looks, and just get that confidence. When he sees Jokic playing to that level, he kind of rises up to that level as well. And we know how capable he is. Like I said, during the bubble, had that 50-point game against against the Jazz. And then he stepped up in this last playoff run in every series pretty much, against the Lakers, against the Suns, and then in the finals against the Heat, he was big. So, yeah, he's having a bit of a down year, averaging only like 16 points per game. But we know come playoff time how good he is. But it's obviously the second year coming back from an injury. The body must be aching, especially after a long season last year where they obviously played all the way through right to the end of the last game of the finals. So there is that wear and tear on his body. But I think, fingers crossed, he can stay healthy. They are a different team with him in the lineup. So with that, I think they could be honestly genuine contenders out in the West and obviously repeat again as champions of the NBA. But moving on to my next point, or next fact or cap question is, Donovan Mitchell, could he force his way out of the Cleveland Cavaliers based off the way they've started the season? And obviously, there has been talks about him. Ideally, Cleveland wasn't his preferred destination in this whole trade, but he's obviously ended up here, had an All-NBA caliber season last year. But do you think that long term, or even in the short term, he could obviously be out of Cleveland?
Short term, no. Long term, definitely. I think New York, the Knicks would be like still the preferred destination with like the origins with his dad and the Mets, the baseball team, and then Leon Rose, that's his name.
Yeah, Leon Rose, yeah.
He was Donovan's agent, and he works he's like a Knicks executive there. So I definitely think he wanted to get to New York. He didn't get there, but he wanted to. Knicks obviously need that, or they've been wanting that superstar or star guy that they can market their team around. And I think him with Brunson and Randall, RJ, I think he could actually fit in there pretty well. So
don't know if they will be able to keep RJ though, or Randall.
Yeah, I don't think they would. Well,
like if it's
Emmanuel quickly and some picks, Mitchell Robertson. Yeah. I think they could easily make a deal.
Maybe in free agency, yeah. But in terms of like a trade, they'd have to include one of those.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I reckon quickly Mitchell Robertson and a pick or two probably gets it done. Like they have so many. So
you think more that Cleveland game getting to Cleveland? You reckon that was more of an overpay from the Cavaliers' perspective in terms of giving up what they gave up?
Probably.
Yeah.
And they still got other people like that. I don't think they would have to give up RJ. Like they got Grimes there, McBride. They got Josh Hart. Wait. Yeah,
Josh Hart. But I'm just saying, I don't know whether
you don't know about.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. It would be an interesting one.
But I definitely think, fact. Definitely facts.
I especially think just that dynamic like once they got to the playoffs last year against the Knicks, and they're expected to obviously knock them off, and having that failure in the first round with all the expectations that the Cavs had and a lot of the media, in terms of their belief that the media had in them actually, being a top contender in the East, and having that first round exit probably just magnified that a little bit. And then the way they started the season, obviously they've improved a little bit over the last couple of games, but that slow start, Darius Garland maybe not, playing to the level we expect of Darius Garland, and then the acquisitions of Strus and George Niang coming in free agency, experienced guys who played on championship caliber teams, sort of hasn't really hit the spot yet. And Isaac Okoro obviously hasn't really reached the potential that they expected of him when they picked him so high in the draft. I reckon that was a bit of a reach anyway, them drafting him as high as they did. And then to add to that as well, Evan Mobley, as long as he can continue to emerge, as a star player that they expect him to be, both on the offensive side of the ball, and we know what he's capable of on the defensive side. Maybe that convinces Donovan Mitchell to stay, and if they can, like I said, put the pieces together, who knows, maybe he's in Cleveland longer than we expect. But in the short term, I don't know. It's all up in the air at the moment, and there's always those rumors going around about him wanting to go back to New York and play for the Knicks, a franchise that he does have some connections to. So just have to wait and see how things play out. But I'm assuming you're going to say fact?
Yeah, facts, 100%. I definitely think it's a legitimate, it could definitely happen. But my next fact or cap, the Warriors are lacking another 20-point per game scorer. Clay isn't really the same. Obviously, I won't go too in depth, but there's a lot of, we touched on it before about the Golden State Warriors. A lot of their key, I guess, guys you would expect to,
step up
with Steph thriving, for them to be a playoff contending team. They need to take that next step. They haven't really done it. So, fact or cap, I guess, are the Warriors missing another scorer next to Steph because the other guys just aren't really cutting it?
100% fact. I stated it when we were talking about them as being the biggest disappointment thus far, or this week in a bit, but pretty much you could argue for the entire season with how highly the media rated them as a team going into the season. But with Steph having as big of a season as he is, and as historic of a season as he has in comparison to obviously that unanimous MVP year, like I mentioned, the numbers are almost identical. He looks as good as he has ever been. Obviously, the health concerns with Steph are always going to be in question. Last year, missed games. This year, obviously, missed games early now. So the question mark's always going to be about his health, because if he's not healthy, that team isn't going to be at the level we expect them to be at, because he's the only one that's really producing on the offensive side of the ball at the moment. Obviously, they have even contributions across the board in Dario Saric. Kuminga has his moments. Moody can be that guy. Bajimski, like I mentioned earlier, I think he's got the potential to be that next guy on the Warriors as a high-level scorer and as a facilitator. But you need more from Klay Thompson. You need more from Draymond Green.
Andrew Wiggins as well.
Big facts. One of those guys, obviously, I don't think they're going to be able to acquire anyone in a trade, because they gave up a guy who can put 20 points per game on the board in Jordan Poole for a guy like Chris Paul, who's obviously aged. He's not the same Chris Paul as he once was. Great facilitator, still a really important piece in that system that the Golden State Warriors run, and allows other guys to get open looks. Probably maybe he's given guys who might not necessarily be able to create shots on their own, easy looks at the bucket. But in terms of guys that that you can rely on and count on to put the ball in the basket and get a bucket when they need to, I don't think they have that guy outside of Steph Curry right now, and that's probably what is probably making them struggle the way they are in the early early season pains that they're going through in terms of not getting the wins on the board. But I mean, they can turn it around. I think Clay's got that ability, even though he might be well past it. I still think he can put in a decent performance every now and then, but can you rely on him to be that second option? I just don't think so. So you really need to get those younger guys to step up.
Hopefully Kuminga, it's not really up to him though. I feel like it's up to coaching. It's up to front office move. He can, if he every game he was to take 15 shots a night, you never know. Why not?
I just think he kind of plays out of control sometimes. I kind of feel like, at times he can be he's got outworldly athleticism. He's got the ability to, shoot the three ball, but
mid-range.
At times I think he's out of control, and sometimes maybe he doesn't make the right read or the right play on the court, and maybe that's something to do with the basketball IQ side of things. He's still a young guy. Although he's been in the league for a number of years now, the fact of the matter is he came into the league. The year he came into the league, he should have actually been his first year in college. When he was at G League Ignite, he actually skipped his high school. He reclassified to be able to go to G League Ignite. So he was only 17, turning 18 when he got into G League Ignite. So realistically speaking, when he got to the league, he was almost a college freshman. So there is still that young age, and that fuck me.
Yeah.
We've been talking for 2 hours, so apologies. Let me just get
No, I get what you mean though. He's like, it's like when Iguodala came into the league, and they are kind of a similar mold. It's like he wasn't seasoned enough, but then later on, obviously we found out Iggy later on in his career can be that 20 point per game guy when he was at Denver and when he was at obviously Philadelphia. So yeah, as a career trajectory, I guess you kind of look at Iggy as a prime example of someone who can, you just invest in them and you never know.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like Iggy, he played college ball and he was like maybe, I don't know, they both came out as freshmen or whatever, but in terms of yeah, I don't know. Maybe Iggy had a bit more maturity.
You reckon?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just clutching at straws here. Maybe I'm not giving Kuminga enough credit, but we'll just have to wait and see. But obviously, in that case, from that question that you've posed, I do believe it's fact, and that's the only way they're going to win a championship or like remain relevant in championship conversations. So yeah, but for my last question and the last question of the fact or cap segment, the in-season tournament has made basketball games in November interesting and relevant again. Is that fact or is that cap?
Fact. At the start, I was really confused. I didn't really know what this was, but I'm really enjoying it. I think we're seeing like playoff type games, like between the Warriors and between the Wolves. Obviously, the Lakers, like that playing game was pretty huge as well. We're seeing a bit of like beef, bit of tension. Obviously, I'll use Anthony Edwards and Draymond as a prime example. And then the main thing is, you can't, like Dame said, how can you hate on a playing tournament when it's getting, I guess, guys who are two-way guaranteed players like bread? Like, you can't hate on it. I think it's only doing good for the league. It's giving, I guess, fans something to look forward to every Friday. Like, I certainly like tuning in when I see that weird-looking court, weird jerseys.
It's very overstimulating, though, at times. It can be, especially the red courts, like, they're terrible to watch basketball on, but it's fun nonetheless.
I think it's just fun. I don't think it's doing any harm to the leagues. Like, I think it's been a success.
Yeah. I think we were skeptical on the whole playing tournament when it first came in, and, there was like, oh, it's non-traditional, this and that, like keep the one at 8
doesn't really do anything.
Yeah. But now we've seen how, like, how serious some of these teams take this opportunity to get into the plane because they know they can cause damage. Like you saw that Miami Heat last year, they were a plane or in the plane at that point in time, and then they went on that absolutely
rampage
of a run in the playoffs and got to the finals. Obviously, ran into a steam train in the Denver Nuggets, obviously with Nikola Jokic at the helm. But in terms of, it shows that any team that does participate in the play-in has a chance at winning the finals or, becoming an NBA champion. So I guess same sort of concept. People might have been a little bit hit or miss with this in-season tournament, but I think, it just gives those small market teams or mid-market teams, an opportunity to taste a bit of success. And then, that actually might be the motivation that they need or the push that they need to actually, strive to win an NBA championship, because now that they got some silverware, now that they've tasted that success, even if it means like it's just an in-season tournament or the NBA Cup, whatever they're calling it, like at the end of the day, having any kind of success or any taste of success that you do get at that NBA level makes you want more.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it just gives that hunger
especially
to the
for
players.
the younger guys.
100%. Yeah.
Like teams like the Magic or teams like the
Pacers even.
The Pistons.
Yeah.
I feel like, it's pretty cool.
But in terms of, like even just the fact that they use their City Edition uniforms, the City Edition court.
Heat culture.
Yeah, it just adds a bit of, like I said, a bit of interest, a bit of a different side to the NBA. And I think as long as they don't change going forward, like adding a 4-point line in and adding things that are untraditional to the game of basketball, then I'm going to tune out and I'm going to be pretty disappointed. But like if it doesn't hurt the game of basketball in a whole and it adds more competitiveness and, there's more interest to those games in November and in the early stages of the season, then I'm all for it. So I really enjoy it thus far.
Yeah, massive win. Yeah, I definitely understand it a lot more now, and
you watched the Richard Jefferson tutorial video about the in-season tournament. It was like this video that he did. I think
we were all a bit confused. Players were confused. So if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what does. 100%. You know what I mean? But that does officially bring us to the end of episode 2 of Beyond the Box Score right here on the Bench Mob. That was a tongue twister. But it's a pleasure having you guys on, watching us
in today's episode. You know, it's been a long one. I think we've recorded for nearly like 2.5 hours.
2.5.
It's been a very draining episode. These lights, they're not the most user-friendly situation because they definitely sap the energy out of you. But it's been an absolute pleasure as usual. Appreciate if you guys have watched right to the end. That support means the world to us. And like I said, even if we have 10 people watching, or if we have 100,000 people watching, 1 million people, you know, we'll continue to make content like this. We love it. We love having a chat about the NBA. We love putting our genuine takes and genuine beliefs about the league forward on these videos, on these podcasts. But yeah, without your continued support, we can't, continue these in-studio sort of sessions, because the last thing we want is to be, forking money out of our own pocket. We want to get some ad revenue from YouTube. So if you can hit that sub button, that would be much appreciated.
Help some brothers out.
Give the video some interaction. Give it a like. Give it a comment. If you agreed with anything we said, we'd love to hear what you think. If you disagreed, we want the smoke. Make sure to leave any comments, positive or negative, just as long as they're analytical and, there's some evidence behind it. We're happy to hear from you. But yeah, with that all being said, this has been your boy Danko from the Bench Mob.
It's been Marks from the Bench Mob. Keeping it 11. Let's go get a Parma. It's been fun hopping on 2.5 hours, or chicken parmigiana. I don't know what the American people say down there, but it's definitely not palmy, that's for sure.
It's I don't know if Americans have this or not, but it's a
schnitzel,
chicken schnitzel with a piece of ham and cheese melted over the top of
tomato
it. Tomato sauce
goes down a treat. It's so good.
Side of chips. You can get salad of vegetables. Yeah, right. I'm craving one. The pub's right next door to the studio. We're gonna go in there, have a beer.
Okay, let's go.
Have a feed, and yeah,
we're gonna get this content out as well.
100%.
We're gonna push for that 1K, and until we get it, we're gonna get it. Like, it's not one of those things where it's like this is a bit of a rampage, but it's not one of those things where it's like, what if? It's like, no, we will work until we get it, and that's why we need you guys to support. So yeah,
100%. And like we said at the start of the video, one lucky subscriber will go home with a jersey of their choice. Doesn't necessarily have to be any of these jerseys, but any jersey they like, up to $200 from the NBA store. So be in it to win it. Subscribe, get your name in the running, and we'll be announcing that as soon as we hit 1,000 subs. So with that being said, again, peace out. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, let's go. That was a good recording.